Good evening, race fans. Welcome to tonight's coverage of VSR Phoenix Season 7 Round 15, live here on TRTN. I am Regan Clark and you join us on the back of this season's crowning of the champion. Just Boris managed to secure his bid for the gold and thus overall championship title last week at Donington Park. But tonight, we see among the final chapters play out for the remaining silver and bronze classes. And there is no greater venue that comes to mind than that of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, a track so Herculean in size and complexity that a win at this circuit is heralded as the magnum opus of any driving career. It is a whopping 170 corners and 25.4 kilometers or 15.7 miles of FIA Grade 3, introduced in this certain configuration in 2002, but the fantastic Nordschleife has been around since 1927. It is an esteemed history here in the world of motorsports. Just to give you some perspective here, as we see coming towards the end of their current stint in qualifying. Now, this qualifying session's been going on for about 50 minutes. We're chiming in here at the last 20. Just as we take a look around the track here, we're now on board with Soviet Mario, making his way down out of Auerenberg and Poststrasse, so he's heading down to Adenauer Forst at the moment. Just to give you some perspective of just how large this track is, I've assembled a few graphics here in the bottom right as we stay on board at the moment with Soviet Mario on his way around track on his current flying lap. Last lap he did was an 8:30.695. We'll get on board with the Mustang right about now. To give you some perspective, just how large is the Nürburgring if you were to compare it to Spa-Francorchamps? It's about 3.6 times the size. The Circuit de la Sarthe, otherwise going by Le Mans, it's nearly twice the size of. It's 4.3 times the size of Silverstone, and just around, thereabouts, 7.5 times the size of the Circuit de Monaco. Looking at the largest tracks in history, it's second ranking overall as the largest static track ever built, the largest racing venue being Pescara, which was 25.6 kilometers and was a road course used in the early days of Formula 1, now discontinued. However, being a road course, the roads are still there to drive on. It will just never be raced on by race cars again. The Nürburgring then sits atop the throne as the largest dedicated, purpose-built racing facility of all time. Looking at it up against the older version of Spa as well, you can see it dwarfs that circuit by being nearly double its size. And as we mentioned before, it's over 3 times the size of the modern Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, the largest ever FIA Grade 1 track ever constructed. It is a monstrously large track. It was the home of, I would say, one of the largest endurance events of all time, that being of course the N24. It sits up there in the growing trifecta of the greatest endurance racing events in current circulation. I'd say sitting right up there with the Daytona 24 and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It was also former home of the German Grand Prix, in which it earned the name the Green Hell. The Nürburgring Nordschleife then is a circuit rich with history and is emblematic of the wider European motorsporting zeitgeist. And looking into our qualifying predictions for today, before we go over the championship standings, Elite Cassie looks pitched to take pole position today, predicted at an 8:15.355. Tyler Vermack was pitched at second. We're not sure where he is at the moment in the session, with an 8:16.535. Wishful Winnings looks pitched for third with an 8:22.955. ETE Gilles looking at fourth with VSR Grizz behind him in fifth. Just Boris was predicted at sixth, but most recent news coming out of the paddock showed Just Boris among 2 drivers, the other being Tommy Johansson, to be disqualified from quali. So the newly christened Season 7 champion pumping the brakes on his performance in qualifying today, and it's certainly going to make for an interesting start. Now that he's got a lot less stress of trying to fight for a championship, he's not got the expectation of a championship weighing on his shoulders coming into this round. And also alongside him there in the pits as well, Tommy Johansson with Aston Martin. A sad day to be, because I'm sure he was looking forward to qualifying session today. Something also to point out, because he was predicted at 10th position, Boris was predicted at 6th. You can see between them there was Blue Frog, Antion and Otzi. to make 7th through 9th. Both of them looking at top 10s. Neither of them are going to be getting it today. So I'm going to point out it's the largest gap we've ever seen in qualifying between the top 10. Now that comes with the scale of this track. Of course, 15.7 miles isn't going to give you those incremental tenth of a second gaps that we get at smaller circuits, especially like what we saw last week at Donington Park, where you were looking at no more than about half a second between 6 or 7 positions inside the predicted top 10. Here, from 1st down to 10th, it's predicted at a 15-second gap. Now, that is monstrous by any stretch of the imagination, and even by Nürburgring standards, that's quite the stretch. We're on board at the moment with Boy Shea, 4394, and the number 7 McLaren. He makes his way around Schwedenkreuz. And it's a bit more of a mellowed out qualifying session at the moment. Taking a look at our timing charts then, Elite Cassie, of course, isn't going to be failing any expectations today. The Mercedes looking incredibly strong, bringing up the balance of performance coming into Nürburgring. Mercedes looking fairly strong. Sadly, we don't have the data to hand at the moment. We'll be adding that later on. A flash for the camera then by the Mercedes. Looking elsewhere then, Ford struggling with 12 kilos added. Aston Martin will be struggling with 20 kilos added. That'll be much to the chagrin of the leading Aston up the field at the moment, the number 67 of T. Whitey. We've just seen as well in the chat a clarification as to why Vermac is not present for this round, even though he would have benefited from a very strong qualifying session today. He's received a race ban for conduct during the Donington sprint rounds last Wednesday. Elsewhere in the balance of performance charts, BMW with 20 kilos added as well for Blue Frog, especially in his hopes to fight for a greater championship placement in the silver category. It's going to be quite a long trip today, with an extra 20 kilos weighing down his pockets. Ferrari losing 3 kilos. That would be to great effect then for Regent, furthest up the order for the Maranello prancing horse firm. And looking around the grid as well, the ever-dominant McLaren 720S only gaining a singular kilo coming into this round. Sadly, no data for Honda or Mercedes. So that does leave things up in the air for Elite Cassie. Now, I want to draw your attention to something. We had this replay up earlier on, and it showed the enthusiasm between our current front row, the Mustang of Wishful Winnings, and the Mercedes of Elite Cassie. Now, this was before we went live. We're going to throw the replay on. This was heading, I believe, out through Kesselchen down towards Mutkurve. These two were right on top of each other at the start of qualifying today. It's really showing their enthusiasm coming into this round. And despite the fact that they sit at about 6 seconds apart from one another, I think we're going to see a very, very close start between the Merc and the Mustang heading down into the Nordschleife for the first time. Of course, they've got to contend all the way through the Grand Prix circuit and everything that comes therein with it. It's a fantastic little circuit as well. Last time we recorded from there was the season finale for the NLRL Sunday League, and that was a fantastic round to be. But now we've got the extended cut, as it were, with the addition of the Nordschleife. Of course, this particular layout is used almost exclusively by the N24, the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, following in the same line of races in the same championship as the 24 hours of Spa. So it is a very popular endurance venue. Been meaning to go myself as well. I'm sure it's on the bucket list for many endurance racing fans to visit over their lifetimes. Checking around the track then to see what's going on here. Jayco 14 in trouble, making his way to the wall there towards the end of qualifying. We have 11 minutes left to go here before we get on to an hour and 45 minutes worth of racing. It's going to be quite the long run for our drivers today. I reckon it'll go by a lot quicker than I think we give it credit for, with each lap being in and around 8 minutes. It's definitely going to be a bit more of a methodical race. Not only will the drivers be contending with each other, bear in mind 22 drivers in all coming into this round. There'll be 11 drivers either side of it on the run down towards turn 1. But they're going to have to contend with just how complex this track is. Now, we want to try and get on board with a driver just starting out another one of their flying laps. So we're going to go on board with the Blue Frog at the moment. I believe just making their way out of the pits now. And on towards another set of flying laps. We're going to stay on board with the number 61 as we recount the championship standings. Now taking a look there with a secure championship bid. Just Boris with 724 points. ETE Giles in second with 503. Soviet Mario with 485. The Blue Frog, who's on screen at the moment, with 388, a singular point ahead of Otzi in 5th with 384. Funky Fish with 380, with ETE... Oh, not ETE, sorry. With VSR Pete with 346 points. Regent with 332. VSR Twiglet with 306. And Wadenator with 303 inside our top 10. Looking at our division standings, of course, it's secure up there in gold. There is no longer a fight to be had for the lead of that championship. We will now be squaring off between the Soviets and ETE Geels. I'll say, therefore, second in the championship. They're divided by about 22 points coming into this round. And with double points on offer, there's the opportunity to shift positions. For Blue Frog, having made the move up into gold, we were having to be reminded of that there most recently. And now I believe this was a change that came into effect coming out of Donington, so we weren't made aware of it until right this second. Sadly, it removes the Blue Frog from his bid for the Silver Championship, of which he would have led by quite some way, and that's actually given rise to a much more exciting end for Silver and Bronze. As you can see, with the exclusion of the Blue Frog, we have only a 4-point gap between Oatsy and Funky Fish coming into this round of the championship. Pete, 22 points behind them. 42 points, my mistake there, behind first place. So we're going to stay on board now, so we just check in with the Bronze category standards. You can see there a confident 42-point lead by VSR Antion looks to secure him in for the Bronze Division Championship by the end of the season. It will take this round to really make things count. However, we still have one more round left on the bookings, consulting the calendar for this season, with the 9th of April marking the last round of VSR Phoenix Season 7 at Suzuka, back on the traditional 1-hour schedule. Staying in with the Blue Frog then as he makes his way out of the Dunlop curve and up towards the Schumacher S's here on the Grand Prix section of the Nürburgring. Down towards the Bitten-Warsteiner corners. We'll stay on board with the Blue Frog, mistakenly identified now as a silver driver. Make no mistake, his credibility has moved him up to gold with ruthless efficiency over the course of the season. So making his way out of Hatzenbecks and down towards the Vidal chicane. And consulting our disclaimer, the German you are about to hear was not performed by a professional. Did not take any German classes coming into this race. Really should have. So heading out of the Vidal chicane, what would have been the Coca-Cola curve to mark off the end of the Grand Prix circuit takes us immediately into the opening of the Nordschleife here at Hatzenbach. A very twisty, turny section of the track here. Very close followings into that opening lap to be expected as well. Side-by-side action is a rarity here in the opening section of the Nordschleife. Very challenging, very, very narrow at the apexes. Plenty of bumps, plenty of curbs, plenty of obstacles to make our way onto the infamous green hell. And we can see at the moment the usually quite sturdy BMW is being rattled around here at Hatzenbach. Behind him there is the current pole sitter, Elite Cassie, in the number 98 Mercedes. So out of Hatzenbach we go, and down the Kittelbacher Hohe to Flugplatz, the infamous crest here where we've seen many an incident before. One of the most iconic incidents was one of the GT Academy cars head over heels here at Flugplatz. And it's very easy to see where that comes from. A real area there of aero stall coming up into Flugplatz and out in one of the fastest sections of the track here. Out through Cottonborn and down towards Schwedenkreuz, an incredibly fast, high-commitment left-hander into a heavy braking zone down at Arenberg. So you can see I'm going to take a little bit of grass with them there. Blue Frog giving it hell for leather down into Arenberg and then out of Poststrasse. And it is a long-winded showcase of the track here. We'll be with the Blue Frog all the way to the end of this lap to give you a full showcase of what's on display here at the infamous Green Hell, the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Now heading into Adenauer Forst, a very easy section of the track to run off at. So we head here, very tight, waving S's. We've seen plenty of clips online of people having trouble over the Adenauer Forst chicane. So now heading out and down towards Metzgerfeld. And down into Kallenhard then, very shortly. An open hairpin right about here. Kallenhard bringing us into the sort of middle section of the track now as we head down towards Verseifen. We'll actually get a look on board the dash here, as you can see, rattling over the curbs. Very nearly an incident for the Blue Frog. He's keeping it committed then on his way down towards VSR, the first of our two major hairpins in this section of the track. Heavy commitment coming in here. Very easy to make your way to the far side walls by underpinning the brakes. Out of VSR with relative ease and down towards the next of our two. A much more open hairpin. It's Exmuller. And now making his way out the Ausfahrt Breitscheid down towards Bergwerk. Another hairpin, this time in the opposite direction. We've had two left. We're now going in towards Bergwerk, our open hairpin right, to bring us firmly into another fast section of the track. It's this good ebb and flow attitude in the way that the Nürburgring Nordschleife has been moulded over the years that gives it this very iconic profile to drive in these very tight technical sections, then juxtaposed by these long, sweeping, high-speed sections of the track. It gives great variety. It's why this circuit is so favoured by manufacturers worldwide for the development of various high-end performance machines. From Nissan to Ford, just about any manufacturer has come to this infamous circuit to put their new cars and prototypes to the absolute limit. So now, out through Kesselchen, Muttkurve and Klostertal, in towards Steilstrecke. And now heading into one of the most iconic corners here at the Nürburgring, the Carousel. This incredibly tight, banked left-hand open hairpin left, which we'll see on board the dash here. You see just how hard the banking is. That's if he manages to catch it there in the middle. Very easy to wash in the centre of that corner, but he's done that very nicely. Out through Carousel. Getting into another technical section here, up towards Hohe Acht at the moment. Out through Hohe Acht, now down towards Hedwigshöhe. Making his way down towards Wippermann now. As we get ever closer to the infamous jump. Out through Exbach. And that's into Brunchen. Joining us there in chat as well, Antonio Angeletta, saying good evening. Good evening to you. Watching on board, if you're just tuning in now, the Blue Frog on our final rundowns here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife as we head now in towards one of the more famous sections of the track there. Cars catch air, and I think it was just a little bit too much for the Blue Frog as we saw heavy compression on that suspension. So that was heading, as we can see on the map here, down towards Pflanzgarten 1. So just making his way, you can see just about here into Pflanzgarten 1. Catches airtime, heavy compression over the rear, makes it a little too twitchy. And he's been good to keep that out of the wall. But do expect to see that as a recurring issue for drivers over the course of this race. Just like Flugplatz, very, very easy for things to go south at that area of the track. Now out of the Kleine Carousel. Literally German for small carousel. And out through Galgenkopf, down towards the Dottinger. The longest stretch here of open tarmac. This is where straight line speed's going to come into major effect here, so do expect good performances at this area of the track out of BMW, Ford and Lexus coming into this race. Do expect to see plenty of battles that have gone all the way over the more technical areas of the track come to a head here when we get into proper slipstream front to rear, almost NASCAR style racing with this open stretch of grade 3 bringing us down towards Antoniusbuche and Tiergarten. So sadly, it won't be a lap time that counts for the Blue Frog because of that off he had at Pflanzgarten 1. As you can see ahead of him there as well, trouble for VSR Funky Fish and the Aston Martin number 982. So Blue Frog slowing it down here, out of Tiergarten, holding the brakes to get some core heat in the tyres and in the hubs as well, on the brakes, make sure everything's nice and sharp here just as he makes his way down towards the start-finish line. So it'll be an invalid time on that last run, but Blue Frog's now fired up more so than ever to try for pole position. Again, giving you a current look then at the standing order with Elite Cassie and Wishful Winnings both retiring to the pit lane here at the end of qualifying. There's only a handful of drivers left on track that are out there looking to challenge the status quo, namely among them, right as the checkered flag drops, is T Whitey and the Blue Frog. So BMW and Aston Martin looking to lay claim to that front row, but at the moment it's an all but secure affair as we see T Whitey pulling into the pits now for Wishful Winnings and Elite Cassie. Mercedes looking to take among a very rare number of pole positions in this season. Now, Elite Cassie has been hunting down a race win since his entry back in Bathurst oh so many rounds ago, where he did have maybe not the most ideal of starts, having to contend with a drive-through penalty, but has shown ever since that day fantastic performance, and now he gets rewarded with his pole position by 6.925 seconds. That's the widest margin we've seen all season for a pole position holder. Wishful Winnings makes the front row, and we'll get a full rundown of our grid in a moment's time. As we can see as well, the Blue Frog has pulled into the pits. He's content with third. Right now, our focal point not only will reside with our top 5, with fantastic drivers in and amongst that ensemble as well, but it'll be with our drivers inside the top of the silver category. So keep a very close eye on Oatsy and Funky Fish, 7th and 13th at the moment for the two Aston Martins leading this championship. And in between the pair of them is VSRP in 11th. So plenty of drama on the horizon. Double points, of course, up for offers in this race. So as opposed to the standard 50, it's 100 points for winning an endurance length race. An hour and 45 minutes coming into this length of the championship. The penultimate round then gives rise to what is going to be an incredibly exciting race today. As we check on the map to see at the moment who's still out on track, it's ETE Gilles looking better late than never to try and set a time with Ford. The number 57 is out of Tiergarten and down towards the line here at the Nürburgring. Does he set a time valid from 17th position? He gets down towards the line now with Ford as the checkered flag drops. It's second fastest by ETE Gilles. A remarkable performance, the epitome of better late than never. Takes that second place off of Wishful Winnings, makes it a Ford 2-3 in qualifying. It's going to make for a very exciting opening round as we head through the Grand Prix circuit for the first time. Of course, to pay close attention, I'm pretty sure that we do a formation lap of the infield of the track, so we will be cutting across turn 10. If not, it's going to be quite a long day. And fortunately for you, I've got some news, and I'll be recalling that over the course of the formation lap. We'll see exactly where the penny drops, though, as we get onto the grid here for round 15 of the championship. It has been a very exciting season, to say the least. Taking a look at our previous winners, it is quite the ensemble cast here. A very common name among them at the moment being just Boris, who's took not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but having a look at it here, 10 race wins. I had to count, I had to double check I was seeing that number correctly. 10 race wins this season. That is absolutely feral performance, and despite that qualifying ban, I could still see Boris making positions in this race. That's if he doesn't retire from this race entirely. We do want to still see the champion making moves here. Obviously, with less threat of that being taken off of him now, there's much less pressure to perform for the 999, but that's not to say that we don't want to see him here today. So we'll get a look at our grid, and it's actually going to be a short run. So we're starting down on the Dottinger as we look here with Elite Cassie up on pole position, and it has definitely been one well-earned. That Mercedes has been putting in real grit and determination over the course of this qualifying session. An extended one. You joined us for the last 20 minutes, but it's been going on for 50. That is one well-earned by Elite Cassie. He starts on pole position alongside him. ETE Gilles on that last second run to second, putting himself only about 2/10 ahead of Wishful Winnings, also in the Ford Mustang. In the top 5 then is the Blue Frog and T Whitey with BMW and Aston Martin. Soviet Mario was looking at a top 5 but was relegated by that time by ETE Gilles. He makes 6th and he'll start right next to Regent in the number 420 Ferrari. VSR Oatsy, one of our contenders in the Silver Championship, starts ahead of his contemporaries in 8th position. Grizz 9th, Daily Boy in 10th, Antion 11th, VSRP in 12th with Abok 13th, Funky Fish, another one of our contenders for the silver title, in 14th position. Taz in 15th, Wade Nate 16th, Smiler 17th, Jaco 18th, Boyshay 19th, a new driver today, Imagine L in the BMW, number 381, last second entry, makes 20th and is alongside VSR Twiglet, Tommy Johansson, and just Boris starts dead last at the Nürburgring. What can the reigning champion do now on the heights of his successes at Donington? to try and have a go here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Of course, 2 pit stops for today, 2 mandated fuel stops for this race. An hour and 45 minutes on the clock here at the Nürburgring. Do expect high-octane action going down into lap 1. With about a minute left to go then, we'll recount the news for today. And in MotoGP news, Le Mans extends its rights to the French GP to 2031. The shorter Le Mans Bugatti circuit has held the French Grand Prix intermittently up until 1995 and then permanently after 2000. It's extended its lease to at minimum 2031. Speaking of MotoGP, we spoke last week in some of our live streams about Marc Marquez's streak with Ducati going lossless over the course of this season. Well, fate caught up with him at the America's GP on Sunday, and it was his teammate Francesco Bagnaia that ended his winning streak with Ducati winning in Austin after Marquez crashed out in the Circuit of the Americas. However, the silver lining of which is that the team both of them compete for, the Ducati factory team, maintains its record of a 100% win rate in 2025. In the World Rallying Championship, Sébastien Ogier is set for his return at the opening round of the opening running, I should say, of the the Canary Isles Rally, the Rally Islas Canarias, not Gran Canaria, the Canary Isles.
10 seconds.
The last time he competed was at the Monte Carlo Rally, where he took his historic record-setting 10th win. And the last bit of news we have for today, as we get on towards our formation lap down towards the line, it'll be a fairly short wrap-up here for news today, is that Ford announces its return to the DTM with Haupt Racing. Having a look at the image for it as well, courtesy of Ford Performance, they'll be entering 2 cars into the DTM. This will mark the first time they've competed in the DTM since 1994 with the old Fox body Mustang. That rounds the end of our news for today. We're on board with Elite Cassie NL here for round 15 of the championship as we head down the Dottinger, down towards Tiergarten and to the start-finish straight on the GP circuit. An hour and 45 minutes then on the table for this round. ETE Gilles is looking fired up, hunting down a second race win this season. Wishful Winnings also looking for a win here. So the name rather apt for today, but leading that charge will be the Mercedes of Elite Cassie. German machinery up front here on home soil, here in Nürburgring, Germany. So down towards the line. A surprise 23 cars in all. We were anticipated at 22 coming into this round. 23 cars in all, 11 on one, 12 on the other. As we go down towards the start-finish line here at the Green Hell, the Nürburgring Nordschleife gives rise to the penultimate round of VSR Phoenix Season 7. Watching with Elite Cassie without further ado as we go rolling side by side with Green and Racing here at the Nürburgring, and a fantastic start already from our front row. It's Mercedes v Ford. Elite Cassie already cutting the nose off of ETE Gilles. As you can see down the line as well, it is already spread out amongst our drivers heading down into turn 1. This is the perspective of VSR Pete here, as we can see nearly 3 wide down towards the back of the field. You can see going wide all around, some silver, some bronze and some gold scattered in there as well. Looking back up towards our front row then, let's see if we can get a perspective here on what is going on. The Blue Frog right behind Wishful Winnings. ETE Gilles in second, and leading the charge is Elite Cassie. Watching here with VSR Smiley, you can see some of the action going on up ahead here as dust starts to get kicked up in the face of the Porsche number 32, eyeing up Boy Shea in the number 7 McLaren down through the Ford curve. Antion there, one of the leading drivers in the Bronze Championship, getting side by side and ahead of Just Boris on the way down towards the Dunlop curve, nearly front to rear quarter with VSR Pete ahead of him there, one of the competing drivers for silver. So tiers collide with VSR Twiglet and VSR Antion next to go side by side. This is up the Schumacher S's, so Ferrari versus Lexus in an unlikely pairing here on the opening lap. This is before we get down to the real meat and potatoes of this lap, that being the Nordschleife. We're still in the comfort zone here of the GP circuit, and already things looking to get spicy between our drivers as going long into Bit and now into Warsteiner goes both the Lexus and the Ferrari. That's just inviting Just Boris in, who's already starting to creep his way up. He's already in 19th position, so he's made swaths of moves before we've even got off the Grand Prix circuit. Looking back up the order here towards our top 5, as you can see the Blue Frog still right behind Wishful Winnings, but the real story going on at the moment is right at the front of the pack. ETE Gilles and Elite Cassie leading into the Nordschleife. The system's a little bit confused here as now we make our way into the green hell. This is where the bulk of our accidents are looking to happen today. We're looking here. This is VSR Grizz eyeing up Oatsy ahead of him there. The Aston Martin, one of the many contenders in the still yet to be decided Silver Championship. So still plenty of stakes here division-wise coming into this round. So everything's going to count for these drivers coming in around 15. So far, so good then for our drivers. No major issues to be reported as of yet. No sign of the yellow flags. We're here with just Boris, now crowned as the Season 7 champion as he makes his way towards the back of VSR Pete as we head up towards Flugplatz. Just on board then. So it gives you a real sense of perspective here and the real dangers of going up into Flugplatz. When you're front to rear with someone, there is that imminent threat of aero stall over the splitter. That is the worst place on track to start understeering. You can see in the background as well, Twiglet slowly bridging the gap. 1.5 becomes 1.4 seconds. We could even see some action here between Boris and Pete. We're out around Schwedenkreuz and down towards Arenberg. Boris just a little too far away to be making the move, but Pete goes wide out of Arenberg, so out of Poststrasse. Boris is up a position. Twiglet might even be able to get up a position here as we head down into Adenauer. You can see that's VSR Daily Boy bringing out the yellow flags. He's sideways out of Poststrasse and down towards Fuchsruhe. It's already a bit of calamity. As you can see there, Wadenator now making his way past Daily Boy. There's just trouble aloof for Daily Boy. The yellow flag's still showing. The number 97 now at the back of the field. He'll be getting his way back round in a moment's time. So we're back in the green flag conditions for the time being. This is VSR Oatsy, one of the drivers with the championship still left to fight for as he makes his way out towards Kahlenhardt. Looking around the field then to see where our fights are coming from, because this is a track that, unlike most other circuits over the course of this championship, takes only about one lap to spread the packs out. And we're seeing at the moment here VSR Funky Fish now have to look at a potential defensive performance for 11th position against Just Boris, who has made leaps and strides in this opening lap. Started at the back of the field, is nearly inside the top 10 before we were even halfway into our first lap. I think that really does stand a testament as to why he took that qualifying ban. I think it was more out of entertainment than any other reason. You can see the McLaren is just striding its way through, eyeing up the Aston Martin here as we make our way down towards Verseifen and Exmüller. So that's out through Exmüller. And a Ausfahrt Breitscheid up next. Absolutely glued to one another there, the Aston and the McLaren, Funky Fish and Just Boris. We're going to get a look inside our top 10 in a moment's time to see what the state of affairs is up the order. So we head down towards Bergwerk. A deceptively sharp hairpin right. For all intents and purposes, is open, but you don't want to be taking too much of the runoff there. It's a very high curb, very easy to upset the balance on these cars. They're side by side, and Boris is ahead as we make our way out through Kesselchen. Looking up the order then, Wishful Winnings makes it third position with Ford. So as of currently, the top four staying right where we expected them to be. We're going to get a look here. This is the battle of fifth position. T. Whitey versus Soviet Mario. Looking from the perspective of the defending car here. The number 26 Ford Mustang on our way down towards Steilstrecke. And down towards the carousel. We see here already washing out wide. That's Wishful Winnings. So we've got the battle of third position potentially on our hands here as Soviet gets closer and closer to the two cars in front of him. But bear in mind, all the meanwhile, that Aston Martin is just peering around the corner. The number 67 there on the number 26. Up ahead, the number 61 fighting with the number 23. We'll be getting on board then shortly with that fight for third position. We're seeing exactly where the penny drops here, heading in, or I should say out of Hoher Acht, down towards Hedvigshohe and Wippermann, as our leading cars go down into Exbach and Brünchen. So let's get a gander at that fight for third at the moment. Wishful Winnings under insurmountable pressure as he makes his way out of Brünchen. Right behind him there, the BMW of the Blue Frog. We'll see exactly what goes on here in towards the final sectors of the track. Now, bear in mind, it will be a drag race down the Dottinger between the Ford and the BMW, but the BMW is right where it should be at the moment. Just taking in nice big gulps of the slipstream. That'll be a very, very easy move if he can keep himself razor thin close to the back of that Ford as we exit the Galgenkopf from down towards the Dottinger. We do have an issue down the track. That's the number 32, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to try and get a look at that in a moment's time. Just seeing what's going on here as we make our way out of Flansgarten 2. And so we're out of Sprunghügel and Flansgarten 2, down towards the Schwalbenschwanz. So you can see a slide there by the Blue Frog. Great gusto. We saw fantastic moves out of that BMW back in Donington. He's not lost any of that mentality here. Now looking at the fight for third place as we exit the Kleiner Carousel. You can see it's 0.7 of a second, so the BMW might just be close enough. As we exit Galgenkopf down towards the Dottinger for the first time then. An hour and 37 on the clock here at the Nürburgring. This is really where we're going to get some perspective of straight line speed. He's in that slipstream, so it's going to be a fantastic look at an overtake for the Blue Frog. Let's see if we can get on board with the Blue Frog by the time he gets that overtake in store. So we're on board with the BMW. Number 61, he's just been recently moved up to the gold category. So that graphic showing them in silver, just not accurate anymore. It's not an accurate reflection of the driver he's grown to become. That number 61 getting ever closer to a potential move on Wishful Winnings, but you can see just the absolute raw straight line speed the Mustang has. Even with the adage of straight line speed, slipstream action, it's just not enough to put the Blue Frog in line for third position. So that's great stuff for Ford. Fantastic news for them. But now we've still got one more straight left to go. That's the start-finish straight here on the GP circuit, and that's into a heavy braking zone down at the arena. It's already a great opening lap. We're going to get just a quick look back through the order here. It's damage for VSR Abok. That's what brought out one of the temporary yellow flags somewhere down the line. And it looks like we could have even further trouble here out of Tiergarten. Daily Boys into the pits as well. The 97 potentially out of this race already. Looking to see what exactly brought it out. But we don't have a current indication as to what precisely caused the issue down the line. We were looking up towards our front drivers. We can see here Elite Cassie after one lap is leading by 2.1 seconds to ETE Gilles. So we can see Imagine L, new driver for today, the 381, being joined in the pits already as well by Antion and Funky Fish. So our first rung of drivers into the pits. You can see that BMW has definitely been through the ringer. And that was potentially one of the issues we missed out on over the course of that opening lap. So back towards our fight. As we're just quickly seeing here, we were going back towards our fight for third, I should say, as we're quite lucky to have happened upon another battle. This is for 9th position. We're on board with Just Boris, the championship winner for Season 7. Bear in mind, this is his relaxed driving state now. He started from the back. He's in 10th at the moment, and this has been one lap. Bear in mind, we have an hour and 35 minutes left to go, so do keep that one in the back pocket here. Just Boris may have been down in that qualifying session, but it would be a very poor assessment to say that he's out of it, because he's already proven exactly why Season 7 went to him right here and now, having cleared over half the grid in one lap, and now makes his way to 9th at the Vidal chicane. No one wanting any part of the fight against the 999 for some reason there. That really does go quite a long way to show you just exactly what kind of presence he commands on the grid. A driver with such experience and speed. Drivers now just sidestepping, knowing that they've got a longer race to fight for here, and that trying to hold off the 999 is a futile endeavour for most. So let's go back to our fight for third and see how things are picking up. We're just on board now with Wishful Winnings as he chases down the Blue Frog, who's up into third position. So the BMW managed to catch the Mustang before Hatzenbeck's made great leverage through the GP section of the track. Now, as we enter the Nordschleife, it's going to be a role reversal from lap 1. Wishful Winnings will be on the attacking against the Blue Frog, so we're back on board. The fight for the last of our podium positions. Now the ball is in the court, I should say, of the number 23. For Wishful Winnings, it is looking very, very likely, if his performance over the course of the last couple of races has been any indication, that he could be promoted to gold for Season 8, depending on how the system works going into the next season. We've been told as well there's great confidence between us and VSR for a continued collaboration, but it is of course just subject to our availabilities here on TRTN. I for one personally would love to keep covering these races here in VSR, and they've got some interesting ideas that they don't want to speak too much about yet, but it could be looking very interesting going into Season 8 of the Championship. We've got a stop-go 30-second penalty already, and that's for VSR Antion in the bronze category. So the potential bronze fight could be on our hands in Suzuka if he is able to salvage this drive. He's currently in 22nd. Right now, though, we're watching the fight for third here as we make our way in towards Kallenhardt. Down into Kallenhardt we go. One of the more technical sections of the track. Very, very easy to meet your end at either of these two metal barriers on either side of the track. It may be technical, but slow is definitely not something I'd use to describe this section of the track. You can see pushing it all the way to the edge as we make our way down through Veerseifen. First of our two left hairpins in this section of the track. The next one coming up very swiftly here is Exmuller, much more open than Veerseifen. See at the moment, since he's took that position up off of Wishful Winnings, the Blue Frog has really been able to open the taps here. We're looking at potentially the end of that battle for third, at least until towards the Dottinger Hoa, where we know Wishful Winnings has that benefit of better straight line speed with Ford. That has been a very sudden shift of fate up in the podium positions. The Blue Frog taking good advantage through the GP section, and just as we got to Hatzenbecks, we caught back up with these two. It's been flipped on its head, and Wishful Winnings finds himself struggling for pace on the second lap, though provisionally the first lap. We'll catch up with these two then later on. Taking a look around the track to see where our next fights are coming from. We return again to the battle of the top five. Soviet Mario versus T. Whitey. Ford versus Aston Martin as they make their way out through Kesselchen, Mutkurve and Klostertal. Where could the ball drop here between T. Whitey and Soviet Mario? They're in very closely compared machinery in the corners here. The Aston and the Ford are a cumbersome pair. They're great in the straight lines. The Aston and the Ford both very good over the curbs, and they're going to need to be coming into this section of the track where there's going to be curbs aplenty. So we're staying on board with Soviet Mario, the defending of two, potentially the defending of three, as we can see Regent slowly close the gap with just Boris on his tail as well. We're definitely in for quite a show here for the fight of the top five. The number 996 has brought the yellow flags out as they're into the pits and out of this race. We're still on board, though, with Soviet Mario. It's very close now between himself and the Aston Martin of T. Whitey. He had his opportunity there, but this is a very claustrophobic section of the track. You really just got to hold on to the back of the driver in front of you for dear life here and just enjoy the ride before we get to the Dottinger, where it's definitely going to be a bit of a precarious spot for the Aston Martin. If it gets out in front now, it's going to be totally at the mercy of the Ford Mustang down the Dottinger. Potentially will lose that position out, so it's a real balancing act for T. Whitey at this stage, and the same story goes for the drivers behind him there. Regent and Just Boris are all going to be considering that, because no one at the moment appears to be capable of standing up to Ford in a straight line. The only driver that I would say has got a chance of outrunning the Mustang in this race is the one leading at the moment with Mercedes. Elite Cassie made enough of a gap on ETE Gilles in that opening lap to not have to worry about the Ford on his way down the Dottinger. A bit of a slide there by T. Whitey, but he was able to catch that quite nicely, but he's lost a lot of time, so we'll be having to go back and look at what is potentially the growing battle of P6, with Just Boris closing in at a rate of knots on the Aston Martin. Right now, you get a look here, despite there only being about 0.8 of a second, they are not too far away from each other whatsoever. What some would consider quite the healthy gap in a battle for position is still dangerously close to one another, especially at this section of the track here. We're in towards Schwalbenschwanz and down towards the Kleiner Karussell. Galgenkopf is up next as well. Down through the Kleiner Karussell. Very well done by the pair of them there. Just tucking it in on the inside of that corner. Very easy to wash out when the tyres start to give out. And these Pirellis are really going to be put through their paces here today at the Nordschleife. Down the Dottinger. We do have word as well from Taz, one of the drivers in the silver category, that he has crashed out of this race. You can see, this is what I've been talking about now. When we're on the Dottinger, T. Whitey may have put himself as close as he can to the Ford, even despite the mistakes that he made over the course of this lap, but just no one can stay near him. The Fords are in such a comfortable position. That's why they're second, fourth and fifth at the moment. Near enough all Fords left in this race are in that top five. So out through Tiergarten, down towards the start-finish line to start lap 2 of this race, what is provisionally the 3rd lap. You can see, though, Soviet Mario is making a leap for the pit lane. So taking his first fuel stop already, was running light fuel to get a good opening here at the Nürburgring. So what is the strategy going forward? Of course, now we've got 2 of these pit stops to deal with, and it's only for fuel, so in and around 15 to 20 seconds on either side of it. There is going to have to be a very cheeky strategy at play for our top 5 to stay where they are. Skino in chat's finally he's the only person in chat at the moment to have picked up on the disclaimer at the bottom. I felt the need to add that one just because I feel like I do butcher some of these corner names. I am giving it my best go here, but believe me, German is not my first language. I know, shocker. But we're on board now with E.T. Gilles, making his way through Bitten Warsteiner in the GP section. There is the current rumour going about. We're going to confirm this in a moment's time. What exactly may be going on in the pit lane? It does appear rumours are already aloft that Soviet Mario may have sped into the pit lane. So we're looking around to see if that is true or not. We're going to try and check in with the Mustang that was defending last time we saw him for 5th position. Currently in the pits is VSR Smiler and Daily Boy. But looking for our Mustang, where oh where can Soviet Mario be? And the rumours are true. Now down in 15th position after his first pit stop, it's a stop-go 30-second penalty for the number 26 car for speeding in the pit lanes. So that has definitely put quite the wrench in the works. We can see, speaking of wrenches in the works, that was a big slide by E.T. Gilles. He's got damage over the nose of that Mustang. And looks like something could be further down the line also quite wrong with the 57. It's handling a little bit strangely. You can see he's having to wrestle the car a little bit there on his way down towards Flugplatz, out through the Hatzenbach. Out through Flugplatz we go, and having damage over the nose, this is the last place on track you want to be. But he's made good work of that. The 57 at the moment is 10 seconds away from the lead of this race and 5.6 seconds up the road from the Blue Frog in 3rd. So at the moment, it's Mercedes, Ford and BMW on the podium. We have Nico MCFC in chat asking that Boris is wondering if you can commentate on a 1v1 championship. Well, we'd be delighted to, and we'd be willing to negotiate rates. Obviously, I'm not going to disclaim what that is on stream. That's a business conversation. But yeah, we'd be interested. If you just let us know the dates and times, put us in contact with them, and yeah, we can talk about that. That'd be great. Making business on and off the streams. That's how we roll here on TRTN. We're on board with Regent then as he follows the driver in question, Just Boris, who's looking to set up a 1v1 championship in that McLaren, where we'll be seeing driver duels in a unique Race of Champions style endeavour. If I had to take a wild stab at the imaginative process there, that sounds to be pretty interesting. I would be curious to see where that goes. So, an hour and 24 minutes left to go. And I've got to say, that first 20 minutes has gone by quite quickly. Now, with the drama going on in the pit lanes, let's recount our standing order, and it's business as usual up front for Elite Cassie. A flash for the camera there by the Mercedes, as he's leading this race by 10.5 seconds. And E.T. Gilles is in 2nd, with the Blue Frog up to 3rd, Wishful Winnings up to 4th, and T. Whitey in the top 5 with Aston Martin. But for how much longer remains the question, with Just Boris and Regent closing in fast in 6th and 7th position. Oatsy's in 8th, Boyshay's in 9th, Grizz is in the top 10. VSR Pete in 11th with Tommy Johansson, who started from the back up to 12th. Jayco 14's in 13th and Soviet Mario's in 14th with a stop-go 30-second penalty. VSR Smiler is in 15th position with Porsche after taking their first of 2 pit stops. Wadenator in 16th, VSR Funky Fish in 17th, also having took the first of their 2 pit stops. And in that contention for the Silver Championship up against Oatsy, who is currently 8th position, yet to have taken either. VSR Abok in 18th position. Magin L25 in 19th. VSR Antion in 20th with a stop-go 30-second penalty. And VSR Daily Boy 21st and potentially out of this race. He's been in the pits for quite some time there. So we're going to get on board now with Just Boris as he is closing in fast on the back of the Aston Martin here of TYT. We're on board with the Season 7 champion, the 999, in the battle for 5th position. So, out through, looking on track at the moment, getting a look at the map here. I'll have to sort of tilt my head a bit because that is a very odd perspective we're being given of the Nürburgring Nordschleife. But we're out through Muttkurve and Klostertal, down towards Steilstrecke. Nico, it's all well and good telling me Jaden's off, but I don't know who Jaden is. You're giving me their real name. What's their username? We're watching at the moment then that battle for 5th. Could be actually a defensive fight at the moment Could be a defensive fight for 5th as Regent is closing in fast. So Wishful Winnings is off. We saw that incident there for the 97. Now in the pits. Sorry, not the 97. Yeah, we were so dialed in on that one. So that's Wishful Winning sadly out of the race. That's got to be quite a bittersweet feeling. Now, I did say I'm still going to remain committed in that. Oh, it's side by side though. TYT and Just Boris. He's over the curbs. Very nearly contact there. That couldn't have got any more dramatic. As we were just discussing with... with the off there for Wishful Winnings, as we see here, the off for TYT. I remain committed in the statement in saying that he is definitely a pick in the near future for the gold category. This is just a tough track in and of itself. I think what we're looking at is a pretty routine challenge, to say the least. So now looking at the potential fight for 4th. This is the defensive stance at the moment for Just Boris, as he squares off against the number 420. We also have incidents down the order for Boy Shea, the number 7, in that McLaren. We're going to actually get on board with that in a moment's time here, as we can see they're far enough away here to where we could just quickly take a peek at what happened for the number 7. He may be down the line there, but he's not out of position. He's still holding on to 8th. TYT and Otzi getting ever closer to one another. It's the two Astons now looking to square off out towards the Schwalbenschwanz. You can see going off there, that was the number 67 in the gravel. So out through the Kleiner Carousel. VSR Otzi's up another position, now up to 6th then. The leading Aston Martin, the number 6. And it's going to be trouble for TYT. So you can see there, major damage over the nose of that V8 Vantage. It looks like a trip into the pits then for the number 67. Speaking of Astons, here's VSR Funky Fish, one of 2 in our current title fight. A 4-point gap in that silver category, and being this far down the order compared to Otzi is definitely putting things in jeopardy, especially with double points on the table. Fortunately, he's got a free position up the order courtesy of Soviet Mario. May even have another free position further down the line, as he's already took his first of 2 mandatory pit stops. So do expect to see Funky Fish back up into the top 10 in the next couple of laps. Looking at that championship again, was it Nico in chat asking where he is in the championship? Sadly, they haven't put first through to however the last position is at the moment. Looking down the order, you can see just behind Space and Daily Boy in the championships, but ahead of Hin Hin Pappy and Night Owl, also newcomers in the championship, the 777 and the 159. So, things already panning out. Plenty of drama then in the opening 30 minutes of this race, as we're getting on towards the 30-minute mark. An hour and 18 minutes left to go. So we check around the field. Soviet Mario will be looking to take that stop-go 30 as soon as possible, if I had any imagination as to what his strategy is today. So it may be into the pits here after the Dottinger for the number 26. Regent's in the pits then with the number 420 after losing out position. Looking around the field, stop go 30 for Antion, and he's yet to have served that. Now he's the one of the contending drivers in the bronze category. In fact, he's the leading driver, leading by 42 points to VSR Smiler, who is ahead of him at the moment on track, 21 seconds up the road in the number 32 Porsche 911. So things still quite close there for Smiler. With that stop go 30, and one more pit stop left to serve, it's going to take quite the miracle drive to put VSR Antion ahead of his championship rival. Whilst he leads with 42 points, it's a double points round, and things could get ever closer heading into that final round of the championship come next week at Suzuka. Speaking of, that's VSR Smiler, one of our bronze competitors, the number 32 in the Porsche. Previously went by the name of Evil Smiler before his move to VSR. One of the only drivers, if not the only driver in this championship to have consistently ran the Porsche 911. We know Chris MCK08, you like to run the 992. But this is the only driver that's, on memory at least, gone from start to finish here in the Porsche 911. It is rare to see people nowadays still commit down the path of the Porsche 911. It is a very polarizing car, but you can see that Smiler is more than comfortable in his current position. So having a look around the field, now in a confident third position as the Blue Frog. He was definitely one of the stars of the show last week at Donington Park. That fantastic move around the outside in the fray of action at the S's at Donington. It was a fantastic move to watch. Absolute mayhem in those two sprint races. Hope to see more of them going into Season 8. I hope to see more style of races like that just across the stuff that we cover. I think these short, bite-sized races give for fantastic racing. There's a lot of high-intensity driving. And whilst, yes, that can lead to more incidents, more crashes. Of course, everyone wants to avoid that. No one lives to see the crash. This isn't, this isn't NASCAR at the end of the day. But it does make for those fantastic little bite-sized races. Keeps the energy and hopes high, really. We don't have to worry about strategy. We don't have to worry about playing for the long game. It's all wall-to-wall action. It's quite the juxtaposition then heading into the much more methodical endurance rounds where we're having to see plotting and strategy. Nico in chat asking, do you think I can win a race next season? Well, given the pace that you've shown over the course of your short tenure, I don't see it being impossible. I can definitely see a class win on the horizon. It's just sort of working out the kinks. And this is the same advice I've told plenty of other drivers that have chimed in to sort of ask about how they're doing with their driving and what can be improved. I've had a few people ask me this question. It's really just consistency at the end of the day. Even if you're not consistently fast, being consistent... Oh, never mind. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one. That was a big hit against the wall. Fortunately, minimal damage for the Blue Frog. We were watching in with him here as he makes his way out of Kallenharden down towards Verseifen for the first time. But that was... Oh, yeah, that was a big hit at the wall. He's good. He's good and clear at the moment. He's very lucky not to have picked up any sizable damage on the suspension. We're going to have to catch up, though. We do have yellow flags out. An incident down the line. This was down at Arenberg, the number 420 of Regent. Now, he's just out of the pits already and already picking up damage. It was an issue off of Arenberg and out through Poststrasse. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a bit of case where he's overcooked the brakes. Now we're up to Adnar Forst to see what the Ferrari can do out through this section of the track here. Doesn't look like anything sizable or handling affecting. Maybe a little bit of knock to the confidence. From what it looked to be from our perspective, I think it was a case where we just overdone the brakes and had gone in on the gravel on the far edge on the left-hand side as you exit Arenberg. Right now, though, we're back in the green flag conditions as he's heading down towards Kallenhardt. Looking around the field then to see what's going on. We can see it's very close at the moment in the fight for 17th. This is the perspective of VSR Smiler. Used to go by Evil Smiler, hence the graphic. But the number 32 is hunting down VSR Abok. So both drivers for VSR. So don't expect them to be properly ragging each other around the track here. They are racing under the same label. But make no mistake of it, they are still going to race. I don't think we're going to be seeing any multi-21 here. This is not going to be team orders. It's going to come to a head like that. And out through, that was through Flugplatz. Decisive by VSR Smiler. Held his nerve there. The BMW, you can see where it had damage over the nose already. And it was that aero stall as it crested Flugplatz that led to that huge snap of understeer. So out through Schwedenkreuz and down to Arenberg. VSR Smiler's up to 17th. Looking around the track at the moment to see where our next battles could be coming from. And it looks to have already slowed down here to be a fight for survival for plenty. Just Boris has been on a fantastic drive here in the opening 30 minutes of racing. Has made his way up to the top 5 from dead last. Nico in chat saying, by the way, I'm not 36. I don't remember saying you were. Interesting. We're watching at the moment with just Boris out of Bunchen. Season 7's champion. I mean, it has been very, very difficult to have took that title off of him. Looking at his track record this season, that is just absolutely brutal. Ten race wins. He had a win rate going into the last set of rounds around 13 and 14. He had a win rate of 75%. He has to cut across the gravel there. Oh, the grass and gravel. At Flansgarten 2 on his way down towards Schwalbenschwanz. Things getting a little bit precarious there. Now, keep in mind, this was him pumping the brakes on his performance as far as we were concerned. He took that qualifying ban, not out of any, like, blame of incident. This was totally on his own volition by the appearance of it. Started from dead last alongside Tommy Johansson. Both of them have made strides up the order. Just Boris is only about 9 seconds away from a podium here, and we're not even halfway through the race. So that is a remarkable start on any record here. If you need any further proof beyond what you're seeing, the mammoth list of accolades on the right-hand side of your screen, you could pay very close attention to his drive over the course of this race if you need any further proof as to why this man was Season 7's champion. And looking at that there, he makes Season 7, so joins the long list now, growing list of drivers to have won seasons here in VSR. So out through Tiergarten, down towards the start-finish line. We'll see what the going rates is for the 999. As he looks to be eyeing up potentially a run into the pits there, backs out of it, going on for another lap here on a lap 4 of this race. So checking around the field to see where our nearest fights could be coming from. We have one sort of over the horizon at the moment. It's for the top 5. Boyche versus VSR Otzi. Boyche, I would remind you, is still quite new in this championship. I think this is his 3rd or 4th race in VSR Phoenix Season 7. So it's a remarkable feat then to see such strides in career progress to put himself up in that top 5. He's kept his head under the radar here, out of trouble. And for his efforts, he's rewarded with that top 5 drive at the moment. That's fantastic stuff for the number 7. But on the horizon was VSR Otzi, but he's into the pits, so playing the long game at the moment for the control of the Silver Championship. Nico MCFC in chat asking that he reckons I should commentate for F1 League races. Funny story. So, for those of you who are new to the TRTN channel, we started out as a league called TRR, True Racing Revival. It was me and my friend. We started it up in, I think, I want to say now early 2023, very late 2022. One of our first major series that sort of took off on Twitch was F1. So we started with F1 21. We moved over to F1 22. We ran a custom teams championship. It was an interesting idea we've been wanting to explore since the since the player cars were properly integrated into the game. It made for a level playing field, of course, because you're not running on manufacturer cars. It's all equal cars, and it gives the people the opportunity to make their own team. So we saw interesting stuff out of there. We saw like Nissan, we saw BMW, we saw Lotus come back as well. Audi ended up winning the custom championship, and then after about F1 23, it went back into sort of normal F1 teams. We carried that for a few seasons, and then when TRR came to a close, so too did our coverage of F1. We haven't covered it since. And while I would be interested, as we see here, Tommy Johansson and Funky Fish side by side, 2 Astons down the Dottinger. This is already exciting stuff here. Johansson alongside, potentially ahead here. The camera's giving us a very zoomed in shot here. It's almost level pegging. They're both in the side draft of each other on their way down the Dottinger. We'll catch up on the story later on here as we see Tommy Johansson eyeing up a position here on Funky Fish, one of our silver contenders here. Johansson looking ever closer to a top 10. It's very close between the pair of them. It's contact out through Antonio Spucher down towards Tiergarten. That could have gone south. Down towards the line there. A very, very solid move there. He licked the stamp and sent it. Tommy Johansson, for his efforts, is up to 12th position. Behind him by just over a second then. VSR Funky Fish will stay on board with these two then, as this looks to elevate potentially soon into a fight for 10th position. So back onto the story. as mentioned by our viewers in chat asking sort of about what our availability is for F1. Since F1 23, we haven't covered anything in Formula 1. My stance is, at the moment, I'd like to go back to Grand Prix racing. Lord knows I had some of my most fun as a commentator doing F1 races. We had a Tier 1 and Tier 2 system in TRR, and it worked pretty well. I'd like to say it did offer its own unique flavour of racing on both sides of it. The Tier 2s were less experienced, but a lot closer to each other. The Tier 1s were ruthlessly fast, but a little bit further away from each other. That skill ceiling was a little bit higher. Nonetheless, we had a lot of fun with that. My stance on it at the moment is I don't really like the new F1 games, but I would still be willing to cover them because it's not what I like. I don't really like racing GT3 cars. I still did it, but I love commentating for it because I know these drivers have a way higher ability to drive these machines than I ever could have hoped for in the short time I did GT3. So I'd be willing to cover it, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of market reach. They've just lost the esports license, and I see that as a nail in the coffin, really. As someone who wants to get into the sort of top end of esports commentary work, I don't really see a future on the horizon for the F1 Codemasters games at the moment, and I think that's emblematic with the issues that are prevalent with that game. I could go on all day about that. I've got a lot of personal issues with it, but that's neither here nor there. We're in the here and now for GT, and really, I could do a whole rant about that, but I'm not going to, because we've got an hour and 6 minutes. It would take an hour and 7. So, staying on board with Tommy Johansson, he makes his way into the Nordschleife. Let's head through the Hatson back. We can see the sun is starting to drop beyond the horizon, so with an hour sort of looming over the rest of this race, we could see at the very, very last laps, last corners, we're going to have to cut away. There is an issue up front. The number 98 is in trouble. We're going to have to get on board very urgently here. The yellow flags are out. A state of emergency in order up through the top 5. The 98 is in trouble. Elite Cassie in the Mercedes ran into some kind of issue, and at the moment is back going again, but that gap has more than half between the top 2. We're going to try and get on board with the Mercedes here, and there is damage over the nose of Elite Cassie, so we're not entirely sure what happened. We saw the yellow flags come out. This is the aftermath of it. The 98 with severe nose damage is slowly losing time to ETE Gilles. We're back in the green flag conditions for the here and now. We're going to catch on board then with the car in second. We quickly see here that Majin L is slowly catching up to Funky Fish for 13th. Right now, though, is the pressing matter of our top 2. ETE Gilles is in the clear and narrow. No damage over the nose of that Mustang as far as we know. Making our way down towards Brunchen. You can see that gap is quickly dropping away between our top 2. Elite Cassie is struggling after whatever occurred. It happened down at the carousel by the looks of it. Between Stylestrecker and carousel and out towards Hoa Act. That looked to be where the issue occurred on track. And this is to great benefit for ETE Gilles. That gap is going to keep dropping away. He's just got to not get too excited by the prospect of leading this race. It definitely will be coming to him because that Mercedes isn't going to be able to go another lap. We're out through Sprunghögel there, where we catch air out of Flansgart 9s through Sprunghögel and Flansgarten 2 down towards the Schwalbenschwanz. We can see that gap right now plateauing around 4.9 to 5 seconds. As we get down the Dottinger, though, that's going to quickly start dropping away. We see, just like Boris did earlier, a lot of drivers out through Flansgarten 2 is having to cut that sort of second bit there over the grass because they're carrying so much momentum, and there is a bit of compression in that area where the car does get a little bit light on the wheels. It starts bouncing around. That's where we start losing some of that grip. The aero is just not planting the car down fast enough. So out of Galgenkopf down towards the Dottinger, ETE Gilles has got a very clear line of sight now on Elite Cassie. You can see on the timing charts to our left, that gap's at 4.7 seconds. As we get towards top gear now, it's slowly bleeding to 4.6. Could be 4.5 now towards Antonios Bucher, with ETE Gilles right on the precipice of leading this race. This isn't necessarily the battle for first, it's a battle for survival for the leading Mercedes. Elite Cassie in the stricken number 98 as he makes his way out of Antonios Bucher, and Tiergarten has dropped another 0.3 of a second. That becomes 4 tenths. Now still with ETE Gilles, he's looking right on the precipice now of leading this race here in the Nürburgring. can see out of Tiergarten. Do we get a clear line of sight on the Mercedes? Oh, it's a big bounce over the curbs. But ETE Gilles is following Elite Cassie into the pits. So he had the opportunity laid bare before him. Both of them, though, are taking trips into the pit lane. However, Elite Cassie's run's definitely going to take a lot longer than Gilles. He can skip some of those repairs. You can see there is a little bit of damage on the Mustang from that collision. But more importantly, having a look then, the Blue Frog emerges as our new race leader here into lap 5. With an hour and 2 minutes left to go, we have a new race winner on our hands. Not race winner, sorry, race leader. I wouldn't speak too soon here, but definitely looking confident for the number 61. A new race leader on our hands, the BMW of the Blue Frog. Was competing in the silver category, as far as we've been led to believe overnight, has been transferred to gold. And that's left the silver category much more competitive than we would have expected. Otherwise, it would have been a pretty wrapped up affair here for the Blue Frog. Has been moved up to gold to be given a real challenge here towards the end of the championship. Now, I'm not clear on how the process exactly works of moving drivers up through championships, but I imagine if the Blue Frog did stay around in silver, there'd be plenty of eyebrows raised over whether or not he necessarily should be there. He's already the makings of a gold driver. I think this has just symbolised it towards the end of the season. This has cemented his sort of role at the top end of this grid. You can see there is also, just like the two cars we saw running into the pits, our leading pair, this BMW also does have some damage at play. You can see, compared to the other two, though, it is quite minor there. No real issues with the splitter, no issues with the diffuser. Doesn't appear to be any underside damage either. So we've not seen the car bottom out in any of the major corners. We can see, though, in the background that Just Boris is only about 2.8 seconds down the road. As we enter the Nordschleife, for the sun now becoming a pressing factor for our drivers. Visibility is going to become a bit of a concern with the sun now starting to get into the rather invasive spot in the sky to where it's going to start blinding some of the drivers, especially these high commitment areas of the track. This is what I'm talking about here. You can see the road is properly lit up. A lot of that's going to be bouncing back into their eyes, making it a little bit harder to see the full extent of the track. So in the nice shady areas here at the Hatzenbach, this is where Blue Frog's really got to put the hammer down, because that McLaren isn't letting up. He's not got any damage to contend with. The number 999 slowly chasing down, and the number 61 will catch up in a moment's time. We take a look around the field. So as far as the penny drop between Abok and Smiler, Abok's took both of his pit stops now. The number 27 is in the clear for the rest of this race with an hour left to go. Imagine L's up to 13th position after one pit stop on his first race this season. Will he be a present factor in Season 8? One does wonder. It's definitely looking quite promising for the BMW. Elite Cassie then, who did previously lead this race, emerges from the pits in 4th and behind ETE Gilles after having to repair the damages on the number 98. He's 32 seconds down the road from that Mustang. Could that one incident have cost him the race win? 59 minutes will tell you different by the end of this race. VSR Grizz in 8th position, looking very strong in the number 44. Just Boris, as we mentioned before, is closing in fast on the race lead. We'll be catching up with them when it gets beneath that 1 second barrier, and I'd say that's pretty soon for the number 999. VSR Pete's in the back of the top 10 at the moment, nearly 7 seconds away from Grizz. As we can see, the data's just updated, putting him in 9th as opposed to 10th. Boyche in 6th position, still in a very strong place in this race for such an early drive in Season 7. Well, I suppose a late entry, but early drive nonetheless. The 3rd or 4th time this season we've seen Boyche, and already hitting well above expectations. Wade Nater into the pits then on his first of 2 pit stops for the 169 McLaren. And Jayco into the top 10. So both of those McLarens, as far as we know, Boyche and Jayco 14 appear to be on the same team, running the same colours, almost the exact same livery. Both of them then are up into the top 10. They'll be elated with that news. We see Wade Nater crossing over here. VSR Daily Boy still technically in this race, but provisionally last and looks to be a DNF. VSR Otzi then still fighting for the silver championship. Is only 4 points ahead of Funky Fish in this round is looking to open that gap up. Funky Fish is somewhere down the order from him, but right now he's having to focus ahead of him as he's getting slowly closer and closer to Boyche and looks to be fighting for 6th position as he makes his way towards Flugplatz. Tommy Johansson's definitely wowed expectations, just like Just Boris, both of them starting on that back row of the grid. Tommy Johansson, after one pit stop, is just outside the top 10, scratching at 11th position very, very soon. Is only in the sort of low double digits away, about 13 seconds we're looking at here to Jayco 14. Funky Fish in 13th position, not too far away either. Bear in mind, a lot of this will be decided on strategy with those second pit stops, which we could anticipate in and around 27 minutes time. We see that the repeating factor is a lot of drivers go for that second pit stop when there's about 30 or so minutes left to go. It's when you can run a medium fuel load. You know the car can handle that kind of pressure. We're not going to run out of fuel, and they can hammer it all the way to the line. ETE Gilles then looking to hunt down the Blue Frog and Just Boris, but with nearly a minute between himself and second and first, does raise many a question over whether or not ETE Gilles can salvage this and take his second career win this season. Of course, we saw a win out of ETE Gilles not long ago. Looking at our previous wins, we saw Gilles take the checkered flag at round 11, and that's the only win Ford Performance has had this season. And technically, looking at it here, that would be the third win that Euro Titans have. Though in regards to that now, the news coming through from the paddock that Tyler Vermack was released not long ago from Euro Titans. He's bounced back by joining the American team K1. We'll see where his career goes from there. We'll be seeing him hopefully this Sunday in Austin, Texas for the next round of the Sunday League. We'll also potentially be seeing him as early as Saturday in the upcoming penultimate round of the NLRL Console Endurance Series, set to go live on Saturday from Kyalami. So we're still on board with ETE Gilles, and it's looking fairly measured now after that first set of pit stops. He's just settling into a nice groove. This is a track that requires a very firm understanding of the flow state. He's not pushing the car too hard. The car's not forcing him around on this straight, not on this straight, on this sort of section of the track. Very little struggle between either side of it. He's just in a nice equilibrium state at the moment. He's going to be keeping a nice rhythm here. On that last lap was an 8:37, 3:07, but bear in mind he was sort of stretching the legs on that Mustang after his pit stop. So we'll see exactly where he lands pace-wise after this lap coming. Soviet Mario has rebound from that stop-go. Despite that stop-go, is still inside the top 10, so can absolutely salvage this drive today. It would take quite a long way now to put him back where he was before, inside that top 5, but never say never on that front. We've seen plenty of action sweep across the track. We've already seen a change of the sort of lead of this race in the span of the first 45 minutes. Now with 54 minutes left to go, so we see Wishful Winnings in the pit lane then. And that's one of the more remorseful drives for today. And that is, it's really quite sad as well. It was looking quite promising for Wishful Winnings. He's rejoined the paddock so that he can watch the rest of the race by the looks of it. Was on for a solid result, but they don't call it the Green Hell for nothing. It is an indiscriminately wrathful track. It will take and consume whatever it pleases. It is a totally soulless, unfeeling stretch of 15.7 miles of FIA Grade 3, and it will take and destroy just about whomever and whatever it wants. It is why it's regarded widely as one of the most demanding tracks, if not the most demanding track on planet Earth. Out through Sprunghugel then. We're watching with Regent in the top 5 with Ferrari. You definitely can see that it will be much darker, a lot quicker than we thought. We're already at 8:42 p.m. local. We'll definitely be seeing night racing then by the end of today. The sun's starting to set beyond the horizon. We're going to have to consider getting the lights on a few of these cars already. Down towards Schwalbenschwanz, you can see there the warm glow then of the sunset here in Germany. As we get into what is, I would definitely say for these drivers, the most terrifying prospect of all. A nighttime Nords race. This is the dread. This is the worst nightmares of any GT3 driver. It haunts them in their dreams. It haunts them in their nightmares. They can't close their eyes without seeing the track limits here in the dark. Totally consumed by the two lines that separate them from utter annihilation on either side of it. We can see at the moment, up in the front, Just Boris is now in for his first pit stop. He's actually out already, so that was rather quick. ETE Geels is 11 seconds up the road. Already out of the arena section, a shortened version of that called the Yokohama S. There's a shorter, abbreviated section of the Mercedes-Benz arena that we see in the standard GP GT circuit. So a very late first pit stop. Will it be the same story then for a second one? We're halfway into the race now. We can realistically expect to see the next rung of pit stops in and around the half an hour mark, when they can run sort of medium fuel loads, sort of half sprint race length, and just absolutely gun it hell for leather to the checkered flag. But that remains to be seen at the moment. Looking then, with 52 minutes left to go, we're halfway into round 15 of the championship. The Blue Frog leads this race in the number 61 BMW. Just Boris, who we watched exit the pit lane, is in second, with McLaren, after starting from last. It's been a remarkable drive, very easily in the pickings for driver of the day at the moment. I don't think anyone would argue with that one. ETE Geels is in third. That's incorrect there. Just Boris is actually in third, and ETE Geels is in second. So I'm not sure why ACC is showing it that way. If we take a look here, there you can see he's in third. So that is something they really ought to get fixed. So we can't go off of that yet, because it's pretty clearly not correct. We'll give it a few minutes then to update. The bottom line is, our top three right now consists of the Blue Frog, ETE Geels, and Just Boris. And despite there being that one position discrepancy from before, they're still gone from last to third. That is not an easy feat, even on a normal racetrack, let alone on the Nürburgring Nordschleife. Put that into some perspective, that'd be like Sisyphus rolling the boulder up Mount Olympus with his pinky finger. So that is quite the challenge. 1.9 seconds at the moment between Soviet Mario and VSR Pete. Could see a potential fight for 9th position on the horizon. Boyche is clear of Otzi at the moment, thanks to that earlier pit stop by the Aston Martin. Wade Nater also out on a lonely drive in 16th position. He took his first of 2 pit stops earlier on. So right now, not an awful lot to discuss at this current time. Of course, strategy was always going to be a prevailing factor in these races, and it was what's going to separate a lot of these drivers from each other. Especially at the halfway mark, this comes as no surprise to anyone. So this is what becomes now the difficult part to discuss, because we're sort of lying in wait here to see where the penny drops on our second rung of pit stops. Now we can realistically play games here and predict whereabouts our drivers will be on the race length before they come into the pits again, but at the end of the day, this is totally speculative information. And as much as we've got the eye candy here of watching drivers like ETE Geels and Just Boris and the Blue Frog rag their cars hell for leather around the Nürburgring, can't help but feel a little bit lonely not being able to see a lot of battles going on. Of course, we were delighted to see in our opening 30 or so minutes plenty of battles to discuss. Nürburgring becomes a bit of a divisive track on the front of that discussion, because it doesn't offer anywhere near as much enjoyable, opportunistic racing as we get to see in other racetracks. It is definitely a big skill ceiling for drivers. This is the big dividing factor, and it's why battles are so scarce once we get to this length of the race. Not only has strategy played a huge factor in it, it has also been that sort of case of handling your own car. It's that mantle these drivers have to take on when they get behind the wheel here at the Nordschleife. Is, am I even going to come out of the first stint in one piece? And I think that's the question now being asked by the number 982, as we have yellow flags at the moment down in Hatzenbachs. The number 982 of VSR Funky Fish appears to be in a spot of bother. Now as he makes his way back onto the track, doesn't look to be like major damages at the moment. We're looking over the sides of that Aston Martin to see if it was potentially a door ding impact against the wall down through Hatzenbach, but it looked to be just a little bit of a scare, maybe over the curbs, and a little bit of an upset for the Aston Martin. Nonetheless, he's in the clear at the moment, 13th after his first pit stop. Can see that gap between Soviet and Pete is getting closer and closer. We're going to stay on board then with Soviet Mario in what is the preceding fight for 9th position. McLaren versus Ford as we head down towards Kallenhardt. I imagine this is going to be quite the scenic drive then, with the looming glow of the sun slowly setting beyond the horizon here. Our drivers are going to be in for quite a rough ride here in the next 47 minutes of racing. Tyler Bamack in chat asking, what were you saying earlier about the NLRL Sunday League? Well, Tyler, it was in regards to the recent news that you've joined K1, which I am correct in saying at the moment, because I've seen you join K1, and obviously you've been let go by Euro Titans, which obviously is sad to hear. But that rebound into K1, we're hoping to see you at the Sunday League this coming Sunday, of course, at Austin, Texas. So we're on board with Soviet as he gets closer and closer to VSR Pete. Now we're out towards, looking at it here, this is Bergwerk. So heading into one of the faster sections of the track now as we're out towards Kesselchen. This is where the Mustang is going to have the adage of straight line speed over the McLaren, but with corners on the horizon, things are going to get a lot tighter and more technical out of Steilstrecke in a few corners' time, so the McLaren will swing right back into having the advantage in this fight for 9th. So out towards Mutkurv. Right about here, this is Mutkurv coming up. The drivers do have to lift. He goes down a gear, as a matter of fact, heading through Mutkurv and down towards Klostertal and Steilstrecke. See there, Pete underpinned the brakes a little bit, but he's kept it nice and wide, and that's actually given him a nice healthy dose of extra momentum to bring him further ahead of Soviet Mario on our way down towards the carousel. But you can see the McLaren washes out wide, the Mustang doesn't. It's to the inside and makes a very quick and tidy move for 9th position. Let's get a replay on that. This is exactly why getting the perfect line through carousel is absolutely paramount for a drive here at the Nürburgring. You can see just didn't dip it in enough, had to wash out of that corner, had to slow all the way down. Meanwhile, the Mustang can just slide on through on the inside and got a very quick and easy position for his efforts. So that effectively is the end of 9th position's fight, with VSR Pete tucking into 10th and is now 1.5 seconds behind Soviet Mario, who now looks to eye up VSR Grizz. He's 2.1 seconds up the road and dropping by a rate of knots as we head towards Brunchen. This is going to be the interesting point here, because after Brunchen we're in towards the Flansgartens and the Sprunghurgel, where we see the cars gain airtime. There was that issue we saw before with the Blue Frog where he went head over heels in that section of the track earlier on in this broadcast. Now we'll see how these two handle their metal on their way down towards Sprunghurgel. You can see it looming on the horizon there. We're going hell for leather down into it now for what is the fight of 8th position. Both of them make it over with very good ease there. Out through Flansgarten Eins. We're heading down towards Flansgarten Zwei in a moment's time. You can see all over the shop was Grizz. He's forfeited that fight and up into 8th. 2 positions in the same sector of the track is very nicely done by Soviet Mario. Started this little section in 10th. Is now up to 8th for his efforts. He's on the warpath with Ford. Very, very nicely held. So out through Schwalbenschwanz and down towards the Kleiner Carousel. We'll be in a confident 8th position now, making nearly 3 seconds up on VSR Grizz already. We're going to have to try and get on board then with Grizz, as it looks to be something apparently wrong with that McLaren. It was struggling for pace against the Mustang. Now it's got a fellow McLaren on its tail as we make our way through Galgenkopf. VSR Pete's right on the tail of VSR Grizz. This is in the fight for 9th position. They're going to be going flat out here out of Galgenkopf. Pete's going to have the slipstream, looking for the move up against VSR Grizz. You can see in the rear view just how close Pete's getting now. Bear in mind, same engine on these cars here, but now we've got the adage of slipstream. You can see in the background, that's Jayco 14. Could be 3 McLarens very, very soon. VSR Grizz and VSR Pete side by side down the Dottinger. Down towards Antoniusbucher, we can see VSR Pete now up and ahead, but it may be a little bit of a switchback on our hands if VSR Grizz decides to tuck into a little bit of slipstream here down towards Tiergarten. I think it's just a little too late So you can see Grizz slowing all the way down. Something is definitely wrong with that McLaren. He may be into the pits very, very shortly then. So you can see really hesitating now. He's taking it nice and smooth. Jayco 14 may have him on his way down towards the start-finish line. You can see there making his way to the right-hand side. And into the pits goes VSR Grizz, very nearly taking the central reservation with him there, slowing down to the line. Speaking of McLarens, here's Just Boris, 16.5 seconds from ETE Geels, who now, if we catch on board with the Mustang, after a late pit stop then by the Blue Frog, now leads this race. So this is what ETE Geels has been waiting for. He now leads here in the Nürburgring by 16 seconds to the nearest car as he makes his way up to Flugplatz. It's looking very strong for Ford and it's looking very strong for ETE Geels at this leg of the championship. Of course, with the gold category all but decided now, this is his opportunity to really open the taps with Just Boris pumping the brakes on his drive, though I must say, for what is supposed to be the post-championship, really, more relaxed, chaotic drive as we get towards the end of the season, this is anything but for him. It's been clinical precision by that 999 to go from last to second. ETE Geels, though, has taken full advantage of this to give himself a very, very good stance on his way into this race. Started second alongside Elite Cassie, has held his nerve very, very well in that Ford to take the race lead. And with 41 minutes left to go, we'll see exactly where the penny drops between Ford and McLaren on this decisive race win. Like I said, a race win here at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, doesn't matter what series it's in, stands head and shoulders above the rest in anyone's trophy case. It is a fantastic circuit to race at. It is an even better one to say you've won at. It is one of the many great motorsports accolades that people religiously hunt down over the course of their careers. Of course, everyone's got their favourite circuit, and that's quite special to them, but I think what's unanimously special in the world of motorsports is how many times have you won at the Nordschleife, and especially so in this crowd of GT3 fans. It's looking around the field, we just got on board with Soviet Mario, who had a big slide into the Hatzenbach. A little bit of an unstable entry. I think that may be what got Funky Fish caught out earlier on when the yellow flags came out for the Aston. See Regent at the moment blasting his way down towards Adenauer Forst. You can see he's really giving it hell for leather there. He may be down in 5th position, but he is charging like it's the race lead on his hands here. Out through Adenauer. This is a very, very measured drive by Regent today. Brand new livery too for the number 420. He's ditched the crimson red that we saw back in Donington. He's now sporting this nice bright aquamarine blue. Very, very nice set of colours there. Bright and summery. Matches the conditions for today then. It's been a lovely day from where we're at in the recording studio here in TRTN. It's been a lovely day in the UK. Uncharacteristically so, may I add as well. I think we're in for probably rain for the next, I don't know, month. Take a stab at it here coming in April. Looking around the field, here's VSR Antion, also in the Ferrari. Making his way out of Tiergarten. Looks like minor damage on the Ferrari. And he looks to be coming into the pits then. So the Bronze Championship leader now making his second and final pit stop. Looks like this was preemptive as well because of the damage. You can see there, minor damage over the nose. The bonnet's a little bit loose. There may be a little bit of front aero damage to go with it as well. Smiler, the other contender for the Bronze Championship, is in a very confident P12 at the moment. He's held his nerve in what I would make the assertion is one of the hardest cars to master in ACC. That is a bit of a hot take, maybe. I don't know, depending on how chat tends to react, we'll see if it's a hot take or not. But it is one of the hardest cars to get to grips with because it's so alien in the way it performs compared to everything else on the grid. Of course, it's the only of its kind besides the Alpine A110 down in GT4. It's a rear-engined car. And what does that mean is that it gets a little bit better rotation through the corners, but it sacrifices some of that core stability. It does make this car remarkably agile. And the main issue being is that engine, naturally aspirated flat 6, one of the best notes in GT racing history, I must say. but it does have a bit of an anemic power profile compared to the turbocharged cars of the modern day. So it's where Porsche has struggled in straight line speed and in sprint races as well. But pound for pound, one of the most maneuverable cars on the field. In an endurance race as well, that tends to be the deciding factor. We saw in races gone by recently, like the Sebring 12 Hours in the IMSA Sports Car Championship, that while it may not be all about having the most powerful engine, because AO Racing and their Porsche ended up winning in the GTD category. So even now, in the modern day, that 911 stands the test of time. It is the epitome of if it's not broke, don't fix it. We've covered teams before that ran the Porsche 911 over the long history of coverage we have here on ACC and TRTN, all the way back to when we were known as TRR. That Porsche has been a prevalent factor in almost all facets of our operations here on ACC. There's always one that gravitates towards this car, and it's always a fantastic sight to see. Now looking across the field, we're seeing here with the Blue Frog salvaging that late pit stop, currently in the top 5 ahead of Regent, and slowly closing in on Elite Cassie, who's up to the podium position, so definitely on a good comeback drive at the moment. Very nearly into the wall, though, was Blue Frog, as he makes his way out of Flansgart 9s, down towards Flansgart and Svai. And out through Schwalbenschwanz. Tyler Vermack in chat asking, what does TRTN stand for? Well, from like a moral standpoint? Nah, I'm just kidding. It stands for the True Racing Television Network. It was the upgrade for TRR, which stood for True Racing Revival. And it was sort of our way of taking the legacy we had with TRR and the coverage that we had, which I know was a bit of a gravitating factor for a lot of people, especially in the Formula One series. That seemed to be quite a drawing factor for a lot of people to come into the series, was the fact that it was covered and broadcasted like it was on TV. And we took that part of it and just kept running with it. When our ambitions made it to where we could no longer host races, we decided to take it one step further and go and sort of work as broadcasters after the death of TRR. Of course, there's always the ambition that we'd like to start running races again, but it's really a case of availability. It was a small group of people, myself and my friend included, started out, and then we sort of grew that team from there. We had people come in with great enthusiasm for the community and for ACC, and they were of great help to us in developing the ACC division into being one of the more respected facets of the Xbox community. It definitely did draw the attention of drivers who now have quite good standings in this sort of scene. Did make 1 or 2 appearances. We know that Just Boris used to race in our sprint series as well for a short while before moving on to other series. And plenty of other drivers we've seen come and go before through that. We do miss that series. Never mind. We're on about VSR though today. Enough talking about the history of TRTN. That's not relevant right now. Out through the Ford curve goes the Blue Frog and the number 61. Checking around the track, fellow BMW, VSR Abok out through Kallenhard there, just out of the hairpin into this twisty section of the track. Very easy to run into the walls here. He's took both pit stops now and he's in the clear, so with 35 minutes left to go, this is where we could realistically expect to see the bulk of our pit stops, and it looks like Regents has been brought on preemptively because he's got damage over the nose of that Ferrari in the last lap gone. So the number 420's into the pits here with 35 minutes left to go. At the moment, it's ETE Geels that leads the fray, and the number 57, Just Boris in second in the 999, Elite Cassie in third with the fastest lap on a redemption drive after damages brought the end of his leading bid. He's 11 seconds off of second at the moment. Blue Frog's in fourth, with Boy Shea making his way up to the top 5, courtesy of some sort of accident there for Regent. That's brought him down to 6th into the pit lane. VSR Otzi is now up a position as well with Aston Martin. He'll be up into 6th. Soviet Mario will be up into 7th, and Jayco looks to be up into 8th. And Tommy Johansson will be up into 9th then when all of that refreshes, because right now it still shows Regent in the pit lane being in 6th position. VSR Pete comes in from 11th. VSR Smiler's somewhere down the track, so won't be taking that position just yet. Then further down the line, we have the newcomer for today, number 381, Magin L25 in the BMW M4 in 13th position. Grizz is in 14th with Funky Fish with a stop-go 30-second penalty from 15th position. Things have gone from bad to worse here for the potential Silver Championship bid fighter in the 982. in his fight against Otzi. As we take a look at the silver standings again, you can see they're only 4 points apart. They won't be that at the end of this round, with quite a decisive gap at the moment between Otzi and Funky Fish. You can see Otzi's up in 7th, looking to potentially go up into 6th very, very soon. Whereas Funky Fish at the moment is down in 15th with a stop-go 30 on the horizon. This will be a round to forget for him, and it'll have to be all pistons firing, full steam ahead going into round 16 if he hopes to salvage his bid for the Silver Championship title. Though, of course, those are the 2 left to fight for, with gold all but wrapped up now at the end of Donington last week. So with 33 minutes left to go, let's get a gander around the track to see where our next fights are coming from. Keep a close eye on these two, the number 169 and number 27 in 16th and 17th. Wade Nater and VSR Abox slowly closing the gap from 5 seconds. See, Smiler is in the pits now as well. So that means Magin L25 will get 1 extra position then. And with no more pit stops for him left to serve as he makes his way down towards the Yokohama S's, he'll be up in a 12th. On his final section of his strategy. So 32 minutes to the checkered flag. Could he find his way to the top 10 with drivers still ahead of him yet to pit? We do have yellow flags, and it's for the number 44 of VSR Grizz. Back into the pit lane with major damages on that McLaren. Down towards the line he goes then. In for another pit stop, an emergency one now. This is out of strategy. He's already took his 2 mandated fuel stops. This is all for necessity of just keeping that McLaren on the road before he gets to the checkered flag. So that's real struggle for VSR Grizz. Not what he was hoping to see towards the end of this race. 31 minutes left to go. We're on board with Just Boris as we are now very firmly into the sort of twilight here in Eifel, Germany. So at the moment, the odds are looking quite nicely in favour of ETE Giles to take his 2nd career win this season. As right now, the gap between himself and Boris is plateauing. We can see Boris very nearly at the wall there, getting a replay. Just how close Boris got to the wall. This whole section of the track is very tough. It's easy when you get a very tiny bit of grass on either side of the tyres for the car to be sucked in against the wall. And this was here at this was Mutkurve by the looks of it, on his way to Klostertal. That is a very, very tricky section of the track. If you don't get the line perfectly lined up there, he's done very well to keep it out of the wall. You can see Elite Cassie's only about 9 seconds down the road from him. We could see, now this is a big if that Mercedes can deliver on a phenomenal comeback drive in his second stint here before his 2nd pit stop. Oh, it's a crash there. Big off for Just Boys. He's facing the wrong way. You can see it was a fishtail up and out of the carousel. This is heading up towards Hohe Acht. You can see out of the S's there. Towards Hohe Acht. Just took a little dip over the curb and it just there, fishtailing into the wall goes Just Boris. So that would be an easy move for Elite Cassie. You can see the Mercedes now ahead of the McLaren. The McLaren with minor damages. It may not be enough to send him automatically into the pits. You can see that it definitely is a smaller symptom of a much larger problem. You can see how much slower Boris has been going now since he's off. That front end is hanging a little bit low, but not major damage. Of course, with that impact as well, going up over the curbs, there could be underside damage as well, dragging the car in the middle. That's going to affect his rotation. For Just Boris, it still has been a phenomenal comeback drive from last, but he looks to be seeing the back of the 2nd row here before he hits the pit lane. You can see it is a real big struggle out of Flansgarten 1, heading down towards the Sprunghügel. So you can see on the horizon there, the Blue Frog chasing him for 3rd, down towards Sprunghügel, both of them catching airtime, but up and into the gravel goes Just Boris again. Very good to avoid the wall. You can see that is a wounded McLaren. And it actually looks to be rear end damage as well. You can see that rear wing, if we try and get a look here, is just ever so slightly crooked by the looks of it. That may just be our perspective there. You can see getting up and over the curbs. He's taking more and more damage on the underside of that McLaren. Well, the lights are flickering. It may not be enough for a black and orange flag at this time for just Boris, but I think it's all but assured there. We'll be seeing the 999 in the pits. And he wasn't anticipating damage, I don't believe. Oh, through the glider carousel, drifting through there. Nearly spat my drink out. That caught you completely off guard. And for just Boris, this is definitely going to be a run into the pits there. That McLaren looks inoperable. We know how sharp his setups are on that 999. It needs absolute perfection to handle. And in this current state, it is damn near inoperable for him. So this is definitely subpar for the McLaren. You can see Boris mounting frustration then before he got to Galgenkopf. He'll be into the pit lane. So that brings about that early run in for his second of 2 pit stops. Now that's a factor a lot of these drivers inside the top 9 are going to have to consider now. Boris will be the first among them to be looking for it. We saw earlier on that Regent was inside that top 10 and took his last pit stop going. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can find Regent as we discuss this. You can see Wishful Winnings has returned to watch the rest of the race. So here's Regent at the back of the top 10. This could be pay dirt for him because he's in the clear here. He's not got any traffic to deal with. He's got no company. No one's pressuring him for position. The nearest car to him down the order is VSR Pete, and he's 23 seconds away from the Ferrari. Regent could have a sudden resurgence to perhaps, I'd say, putting, touching wood here and fingers crossed, you're looking at potential top 5 unless he runs into any kind of trouble. He's heading out of Brunschen and down towards Flamsgarten. And it's looking very strong for the number 420 here. With 26 minutes left to go. You can see Antion hasn't switched his lights on. He'll have it. Yeah, he's got a black and orange flag from the stewards. He's got 3 laps to sort that out. If he can't find a way to switch his lights on, you can see they're being shown what fans like to call the meatball flag. The black and orange. That's for technical concerns, usually. For those of you new to motorsports, the black and orange flag does signify that the car is at risk of being penalised or withdrawn from the race due to technical concerns. Now, this can be damage. We've seen in Formula 1 with damaged front nose cones and front wings. You're very often shown the black and orange. In GT, it's usually electronic or aero. So if aero's dragging or your lights aren't working, such as the case for VSR Antion, where at the moment he can't see heading out of... that was Arenberg. Out of Poststrasse, and now he goes. Still being shown the black and orange. He's got withering amount of time to fix that. Unless he's shown the black flag and disqualified from this race on technical grounds. Out through Adenauer Forst, this is not the place he'd like to be at the moment. Yes, our Antion finds himself in a very precarious spot, and bear in mind, he still has a championship to win here in bronze. He's leading. But how much longer is that potentially going to sort of be in effect for him at the moment? For those of you in chat asking who's winning at the moment, it's the number 57 of ETEG, as it was decisive drama going on up at the front row. A crash by Elite Cassie earlier on in the race. It was now took their final pit stop. And Nico in chat asking where Boris is. Funny you should say, we covered about 5 minutes ago was a few incidents in at the wall. Now just Boris has come out of the pits in 5th position, having repaired the car. He had a few incidents in that middle and final sector with damage over the nose. We saw an issue. I think we still actually have it on replay here. And this was up at the Hohe Acht. We can see earlier on in the race was just Boris. This was the incident that brought him into the pit lane. So up through the S's, up towards Hohe Acht. Takes a little dip on the curb, and that just fishtails the car up over the curb there. So that's underside damage as well. Nose cone damage as he hits the wall with quite some force. Fortunately, though, after that pit stop, the team's got the car pieced back together. The 999's back out on track in 5th position. Up through the Schumacher S as he goes then. He's 9.5 seconds up the road from VSR Otzi in 6th position, but a whopping 78 seconds behind Boyche, who is up to 4th. Let's see if we can get on board here. So we now see a battle. This is between Grizz and Funky Fish. So we saw Grizz into the pits earlier on with damages. Has re-emerged behind one of the 2 budding fighters for the Silver Championship, the number 982 Aston Martin of VSR Funky Fish. We're on board though with the McLaren trailing him for 14th position. See very nearly at the wall. It's actually, yes, going to be a scrape at the wall for the number 44 there, and then up and over the curbs nearly into the other side of the wall out through Brunschen. That brings a swift end to the argument of who's going to come out on top in that running. We do have the yellow flags out behind him, and it's the 169 in trouble. That being Wadenator, you can see there, has run into a spot of bother before Brunchen. This is out of the Hohe Acht, down through Hedvigshohe and Wippermann and Expacht, just before he gets to Brunchen corner here. This dip section of the track before we get onto the Flansgarten 1 und 2 section, as well as the infamous Sprunghurgel. We're back in the green flag conditions though for the time being now, as Wadenator's back out on track. 23 minutes left to go. We'll see what the situation is up front. We take a look around the paddock. You can see Soviet and Otzi are only about 2 seconds away from one another. We're looking very shortly at the potential fight for 6th position. We'll stay with one eye peeled on these two as we take a look around the rest of the field to see what's going on. Tommy Johansson making his way on to the Nordschleife in the number 71 Aston Martin is inside the top 10 after starting alongside Just Boris in dead last. And you can see now the rich and lively party culture here of the Nordschleife are starting to rear its head into night time. The laser shows are out and the lights are out for a lot of these campsites. I've got friends who have been to the N24 and they say it is a really vibrant sort of almost slightly casual party culture, but they don't lax around with any of this. They're still very enthusiastic about racing. And you can see that they've tried to simulate that to great effort here in ACC by having the lasers and the lights and parties going on around the track. And funny stories that have been told by friends who have been to the N24 is that they build whole villages inside the sort of campgrounds at the Nürburgring. During the N24, they have all of these like temporary setup shacks that they sort of build out the back of trailers, so I've heard. And really, I want to go there and see it for myself. It does sound like a very good laugh. We're back on board with the race leader. 40 seconds up the road. It's looking very, very confident at the moment for ETE Gilles. Elite Cassie is the nearest driver to potentially take his position off of him when factoring in strategy. If I had to take a wild stab, I'd say this is the lap we're going to see ETE Gilles in for his final pit stop. The Blue Frog, 36 seconds down the road, may not even be able to intercept him for position by the looks of it. It's a short run into the pits as they use the GP paddock. Soviet Mario and Otzi have already swapped hands for position. The Aston Martin's wasting no time, is now 2 seconds up the road from the Mustang. Oh, this Red Bull tastes funny, I'll tell you that much. Of course, plenty of you know now that I've got a bit of an addiction to Red Bull when doing these live streams. That is a very odd sip. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that one. Ooh. We're on board with Regent. 20 minutes left to go. Down towards Exmüller we go. And this is got to be one of the most terrifying perspectives we can see. Absolutely no lighting around. So we're out now through Bergwerk down towards Kesselchen. We're on board at the moment with Regent. This is Bergwerk here, that's my mistake. So we're now out towards Kesselchen. Oliver Mack in chat asking what flavour the Red Bull is. Normal. Standard. Just tasted funny on first sip, not really sure what's going on there. Out through Kesselchen we go then. And down towards Mutkurv. That has got to be one of the most terrifying sights I have ever seen. Just total darkness on either side of it. It looks like no end in sight to this road. It just goes on and on and on forever. It never loops back in. By the looks of it, it's labyrinthian in design. Regent on his own there in the dark to fend for himself in 8th position as he makes his way down towards Stahlstrecke. He gets some reminder that he's at a racetrack when he is met there with the mounting sight of campsites and fans watching on from behind the barriers before he's quickly back into the wilderness. To give you some perspective as well, obviously we talked about the size of the Nürburgring earlier on. We'll bring those graphics back up as we stay on board with Regent. Now, obviously, the largest circuits in history, the Nürburgring ranks second among. We just see a stab of oversteer there from Regent. The Nürburgring ranks as the second largest track ever constructed. The first being Pescara, a bit of a cop-out when you consider that that's a road course and now discontinued for use in the very early days of Formula 1. You can still technically go to Pescara, there just isn't a track there. Same as Reims, which was also a massive track in its day, was also using elements of public roads. So you can still visit it, but there's no track left to find. The Nürburgring then stands head and shoulders as the largest purpose-built racing facility ever made. 15.7 miles, and it's maintained that 15.7 miles since 1927. And then bringing up the other graphic to just give you another sense of scale, it is 3.6 times the size of Spa, it is 1.8 times the size of the Circuit de la Sarthe, it is 4.3 times the size of Silverstone, and it's 7.5 times the size of Monaco. As a matter of fact, there is so much space in this middle section of the track. If you look at the left-hand side of your screen, you obviously see the track map there. That empty void in the middle of the track is so large, you can actually fit the entire country of Monaco in there. That is how big this track is. That really does go to great lengths to explain just how big the Nürburgring is. And these drivers can make their way through this mammoth complex of a track in a little under 9 minutes a lap. On board with Region, he's just made his way out of Schwalbenschwanz into the Kleiner Carousel. It's been a masterful lap out of that Ferrari. It's been a real pleasure to watch on board with that over the course of the last discussion. And fellow Ferrari VSR Antion is still in trouble, and I believe that was a disconnect we just saw by Antion. So serious risk of his bronze title. We're now watching with Otzi and Soviet Mario in the fight for 6th position from the perspective of the Aston Martin chasing the Mustang. He's in the straight line and in the slipstream, I should say, on our way out of Antoniusbucher down towards Tiergarten. Early on the brakes goes the Aston. He's let Soviet Mario run it all the way to the ragged edge on his brakes there. A little bit of hesitation by Otzi. He knows he doesn't want to try too hard here to pressure that Mustang, knowing very, very likely on a track like this, it's very easy to overpressure yourself in the efforts to put pressure on someone else. In that last lap, he was 2 seconds slower, 2.15 precisely. In the last lap, just gone, 16.5 minutes left to go. Still leading this, actually, I should say, leading this race. Now, after ETE Gilles' second run into the pits, we go and take a look here, is the Blue Frog. But bear in mind, of the top 3 drivers at the moment, he's yet to have taken a pit stop. The yellow flags are out. It's for the newcomer, the number 381. We try and get on board with the BMW that's brought the yellow flags out. We want to try and find him here. The number 381 that's now in the pits is Majin L. Could that be the end of his racing endeavours here at the Nordschleife? Also in the pits with him appears to be, looking at it, I think that's a VSR Abok. So it looks like double trouble for BMW. The green flags are back out at the moment. Not entirely sure what happened then, but both BMWs were caught up in it. This is Elite Cassie. Now 17 seconds from ETE Gilles. With 15 minutes on the clock here, ETE Gilles is looking to re-inherit that race lead when the Blue Frog comes in. Can Elite Cassie find the willpower over the course of the next couple of laps to go hell for leather in that Mercedes and attempt to retake his rightful claim to the leading position? He led down into turn 1. It was an unfortunate accident that took his claim of first off of him, but it has been a real hard-earned drive by Elite Cassie. Watching here with just Boris, 9.2 seconds away from Boyche, who I must say is also a likely pick for driver of the day. Of course, it is very hard to throw any kind of comparison in the way of just Boris's last to top 5 drive. It was nearly a last to second drive in this race. Could have even, before his accident, be in the position for a last to first, and that really would have been history defining. Here in round 15 of the championship, he's already got season 7 under his belt. He's already won in gold. He's already won overall. This was meant to be his opportunity to sort of relax a little bit and pump the brakes. It has been anything but. That is more intensity than we've seen in the championship finale out of Just Boris. This is proper 110% ragged edge driving. So he makes his way out through Schwedenkreuz. Truly, truly remarkable stuff then. Having a look around the field, want to see where things ended up between Otzi and Soviet. That gap's opened up after Hatzenbeck and Flugplatz. Now as we head down towards Schwedenkreuz, they're about 2.7 seconds separate of one another, down into Arenberg. .13 minutes, 45 seconds left to go. It's gone by remarkably quickly, I must say. Despite the grandiose nature of this track, it's a mighty scale. What has been an hour and 45 minutes of racing really has gone by rather quickly. I suppose that is a relative then term when you consider each lap is in and around 8 to 9 minutes each. I do hope to see the Nürburgring return on calendars in the near future. As a matter of fact, I think our last round of the NLRL Console Endurance Series, which is coming up at the end of this month, will be at the Nürburgring N24 for 6 straight hours. So that is going to be a very interesting topic of discussion, as it looks like the championship's getting closer for them. Back onto the subject of the championship, still have to play for here in VSR. Looking back in the silver standings, Otzi is looking in a very confident bid at the moment to lead this championship going into round 16 by an even wider margin. He's 384 points strong to Funky Fish's 380. That infinitesimal gap of 4 points between the pair of them looks to open up massively here. He's really parted the Red Seas when it comes to points here in the Nürburgring, and will be leading by quite the confident margin, especially with double points up for claim here in round 15, heading into Suzuka next Wednesday. Looking around the field to see where our next fights could be coming from, if there are any fights at all. The nearest that we've seen of it so far is Soviet Mario versus VSR Otzi. You can see in the pit lane at the moment, VSR Grismagin L and Wishful Winnings all in the pit lane at the present time. Regent in 8th position after his run to the pit lane. He's repaired damages and is back out in the fight here. 15 seconds away from Otzi, who we saw battling with Soviet only a few laps ago. Speaking of, here is Otzi. We're looking to find, though, what's going on up in our front row. We want to see where the penny drops between number 61, the Blue Frog, and the leading BMW, and ETE Giels, a potential race winner to be today, looking to inherit first place. A bit of a knock-in at the wall, though, out of Schwalbenschwanz. May seal the deal. Out through the Kleiner Carousel, a momentary lapse in judgment could bring about early jeopardy here for ETE Giels. 11 minutes left to go. It's all riding on the line now, especially with Elite Cassie looking to bring it under 2 digits away. He's 11 seconds out from the 57 at the moment, looking to close the gap very shortly. He's now at 10.6, 10.5, so there could be aero dragging now over the nose. But that light contact definitely has bent a few of the aero features out of alignment for that Mustang. It's crippling its ability to have such great straight line speed. It's a real double-edged sword coming into this round as well when you consider setups. Of course, everyone wants to have the most maneuverability in-house, and that often brings drivers into the trap of going full hell for leather on the aero, having it at its most aggressive presets, and that sacrifices your straight line speed in the middle and final sectors of the track when you head, say, out of Bergwerk and down towards Stahlstrecke, and then furthermore when you head out of Galgenkopf and down towards Antoniusbucker via the Dottinger. And this is what we're seeing at the moment. Compound that with the issues that he had with damage, ETE Giels, well, yes, now is up into the race lead, courtesy of the Blue Frog taking his final pit stop here with 10 minutes to spare. An ultra-late strategy by the 61. Will it pay off? Elite Cassie now moves up to second. It is the story of two, with 10 minutes exactly left to go here at the Nürburgring. For ETE Giels, it could be his second race win this season. Looking at the previous winners, his last win, of course, we mentioned earlier in the stream, came out of round 11 of the championship. Looking on our calendar, I'll give you an indication as to exactly where that was. Round 11 took us to Alton Park. It was a fantastic day. Definitely strange conditions for that race gone. There was real hell on earth for quite a lot of drivers. The wet and wild weather at Alton Park definitely gave challenge to quite a few, but rising to the occasion was ETE Giels, and now it seems that tumultuous conditions are really his bread and butter. Tough tracks or tough conditions come hell or high water seems to be the real proving factor of ETE Giels. When the going gets tough, He is a real trooper when it comes to it. We've seen in the worst of times that Mustang shine its brightest. But 8.6 seconds is the gap at the moment. I want to stress this point that due to that slight damage over the nose, while it may not be the exact defining factor to his current drop in time, Elite Cassie is on the warpath, currently second in this race, and is absolutely flying. He's up through the Vidal chicane at the moment. We did see momentary yellow flags as a driver now brought into the pits. We're back in the green flags. This was down at Stylestrecker. We're not entirely sure what happened at the time. It appeared maybe I saw a very brief glimpse what looked to be potentially the number 7, though I could be mistaken there. That would have been Boyshane. As you can see, he's still in 4th. Nico in chat asking who's winning now and where's Just Boris. Of course, Nico, avid Just Boris fan. Plenty of Just Boris fans tuning in every week to watch these races. Just Boris is in 5th position, and winning the race at the moment is ETE Giles. We're on board with a potential challenger to the throne here with 7 minutes, just under 8 minutes left to go, as they're 7.4 seconds apart from one another. Is Elite Cassie NL, our pole sitter for today, and back into the fight for the race lead as he makes his way out of Flugplatz. That Mercedes has really pulled through thick and thin there, but this is now the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. Mustang versus Mercedes. Who comes out on top in the Nürburgring? 7.5 minutes left to go here. We're on board with Elite Cassie out of Schwedenkreuz. This has got to be... I said it before when we were watching with Regent. We have yellow flags for the number 982. That's Funky Fish down at, I believe, the Carousel. The Aston Martin appears to be in trouble, as you can see on the left-hand side of our screens. We're on board at the moment with Cassie in the potential pursuit of the race lead here in the closing laps here at the Nürburgring. As it appears the 982 has gotten going again, has not sacrificed position, but may have damage. We'll get a report then on the number 982 Aston Martin in a moment's time. I was saying it before when we were watching with Regent, when he was down between Bergwerk and Hoher Acht and Stahlstrecke in that sort of section of the track, making his way through Kesselchen and Mutkurve and Klostertal, that was a terrifying view. But really, I think we've been one-upped there by what we've just seen on the dash cam of Elite Cassie NL heading out of Arenberg and down towards Adnar Forst. That looks like something straight out of either a horror movie or a rally stage, a little mixture of the two perhaps. Right now, down through Verseifen, here in the middle sector, the Nordschleife. We are going to get on board now with the 982 as we are being made aware that there is definitely a lot more than just a slight incident. It is a prolonged pressing issue for the 982 Aston Martin. There's VSR Funky Fish with major damages. He's been shown white flags to all other drivers at the moment. There is pressing issues on that 982. Major damage to be seen here. Is this the potential end of his championship hopes in silver, brought to an abrupt stop here in the Nürburgring? Bear in mind, if he DNFs this race, I believe the gap may just be wide enough to give Otzi the championship title here around 15. If he manages to finish the race here in just any of these positions, he just needs points in this. You can see it is very tough to maneuver that Aston back in a line. He's riding up against the walls. It is quite a sad sight to see. You really got to wonder the emotions going on at the moment. He'll be beside himself here at the Nürburgring. 5 minutes left to go. He's put hell for leather on the throttle. I think he's just going to chastain the walls all the way to the pit lane. This is among the most heartbreaking things you can see at the Nürburgring as well. Of course, a track as challenging as this does not go without with the obvious risks. We're going to cut away out of respect for Funky Fish there. I don't think he wants to see all of that on stream when he watches it back later on. We're on board with VSR Otzi as he makes his way out towards... that was just out of Exmuller, so we're heading up towards the Bergwerk section of the track now, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, this is Kallenhard. So that is one of the major issues with covering the Nürburgring. It's a real pet peeve of mine. Not only is the track map on your left-hand side I think that's rotated by about 45 degrees to 90 degrees to what it normally looks like on any other track map for this track ever. It is also so labyrinthian in nature that when the night drops in, you can barely tell where you are. The drivers will have a much more comprehensive understanding, but we don't have the adage of constantly being, you know, the eyes behind the helmet here, you know, the eyes behind the visor staring out onto the track. We've got to look here from these TV cameras, and really it starts to become a little bit all samey. Obviously, you've got your key identifiers, you know, Flugplatz, the carousel, Franzkart 9 and the Sprunghugel, but, you know, it becomes a bit of a tough challenge to try and figure out where you are on the track, and it doesn't help when ACC decides, maybe as some sort of cruel joke against commentators like me, I don't know, we'll flip the track 90 degrees to the left, so it looks nothing like anything you can Google. As ever, constantly at arms, my worst enemy, the ACC menus. Quick update then from Funky Fish. As now both of his lights have been knocked out. He's got the black and orange flags. His steering's broken. Both aero, front and rear is broken. He makes his way onto the Dottinger. ETE Giels is closing in fast. You'll see there, had it not been for the fact that his car is so bright and vividly coloured, I don't think the Mustang would have even seen the Aston Martin at the side of the road. The gap currently between Cassie and Giels is only a meagre 3.7 seconds. So with 2.5 minutes left to go, we'll be on for one more lap here at the Nürburgring, if I'm not mistaken. And these two are set to duke it out for the race lead. I, for one, thoroughly look forward to seeing how this saga ends, as we look to see either ETE Giels' second win this season or Elite Cassie's first. The Mercedes ran into trouble, and as too did the Mustang over the course of this race, but it's really the battle of the survivors now. Up front, the 57 and the 98, come hell or high water, are going to see this one all the way to the checkered flag as we get down to finish things off then on the start of lap 12. One more left to go. Looking around the field just to quickly see, have we got any other battles to bring us to the end of the line here? Yes, we do. And it's for the battle of 7th position. Regent chasing VSR Otzi. Aston Martin versus Ferrari. We're watching on board with the attacking car. Oh, we can see though that Otzi goes wide. It'll be a free position for Regent. That comes to a swift end between these two. So having another look around the field before we go on to what looks to be the real fight of the day for the race lead on the final lap. Looking around, Blue Frog will be taking home if he can get it to the end of the line here on the last coming lap. We've got one more run around the track for this one. He'll be on for a very comfortable P3 finish. Looking around the field, Abok and Grizz both into the pit lane here on the final lap. Elite Cassie then 2.3 seconds from the race lead. It's the story of two as we make our way down towards the Schumacher S's. We're imminently approaching our final run of the Nordschleife. Elite Cassie giving the lights then on his way up towards Bitten Warsteiner. Just Boris will come home to look at a top 5 finish. For what could have been, this is still a remarkable drive from last. Boy Shea would be looking at a very grand top 4 on what I believe is his, I want to say 4th drive in this championship. We have to consider that sprint round as well. Thank you for letting us know as well, Tyler Vermack, in chat about the binding settings for potentially fixing some of our menu concerns. It makes you wonder why they had this as the default, really, for the spectator mode. I'll never really get the proper answers to those questions when it appears obvious that we could have potentially had that be a little bit easier to navigate. Just Boris is into the pits, though. He's into the pits on the last lap. Funky Fish has been forced to retire the car in what is a very reluctant end. Despite being on the last lap, he will, I believe, get points. If not, that's a decisive end to Silver. We're right now on with the fight for the lead. In the ball... I keep saying in the ball instead of the ball is in the court. We just can't function today here on TRTN. It is one of those days. The ball is in the court of ETE Gilles. It's his race to lose as we head up towards Schwedenkreuz. That Mercedes has clawed back so much time here. Now, this is where everything comes to a dead stop. These two are in a complete world of their own there. You can see on this stretch of the track out of Arenberg, there is practically no one either side of it for over a minute on either side. It is just these two alone now in the fight for the race lead. We'll get on board the attacking car's perspective here. Elite Cassie, who started the race from pole position, has fought diligently to be nearly alongside ETE Gilles here, but it can only go one way between these two, and with over half the lap still left to go, this saga is far from over. Watching there, he's flashing the Mustang all the way through as we head down towards Kallenhardt. A little bit of dust on the right-hand side of the Ford Mustang as it slows down. The Mercedes knows he doesn't have much of a chance here to strike this early on, but he's into the wall. So going up into first place goes Elite Cassie around Kallenhardt, but this is far from over. Now we'll get on board with what is the newly attacking car of the pair, ETE Gilles, who led this race, but after one crucial mistake down at Kallenhardt, the pressure got to him and is now in second, clawing at the back end of the newly christened race leader. This is a properly epic battle to behold, and Gilles appears to be struggling after that incident to get grip back into those tyres. The gap's opened up to about a second here as we're out of Exmuller and down towards, by the looks of it here, Bergwerk in a moment's time. We're out through Exmuller on our run towards Bergwerk now. I must say, this has definitely been amongst the most exhilarating final laps we've seen, especially in regards to race leading here. The last time we saw a race decided here on TRTN on the final lap, it was Suzuka in the NLRL Console Endurance Series. So this is a fantastic sight for VSR to get its own very historic moment here in the fight between first place ETE Gilles and Elite Cassie. Will be heading down towards the line. As right now, it's given us the early look at the results. We're a little confused then. We're on to the final lap. No one's seen the checkered flag yet. This is a very bizarre time. ETE Gilles, it's technically shown up here that he's leading. That doesn't appear to be the case. I'm not sure why the results screen came up for us then, as we're nowhere near the race end. We'll stay on board though with ETE Gilles. We'll go back on board with Elite Cassie in a moment's time. Why on earth did that happen? Another ACC blunder. Down towards the carousel then on the final lap. It looks pretty decisively in favour of Elite Cassie after that move down at Kallenhardt. Waited for his opportunity to strike there. One tiny mistake by the Mustang gave rise to the Mercedes' rise to the front row. This could be one of the greatest final laps we've seen in VSR history. So in towards, by the looks of it here, out through Hoher, out Hedvigshohe and Wippermann. Next is Exbach, then down towards Brunschen in a moment's time as well. Hedvigshohe now into Wippermann. That Mercedes now 3.4 seconds up the road. Let's get on board with the leading car after a decisive last lap move. We're actually seeing here as well that potential fight of the order as just Boris hits the wall in his fight against Regent for 7th place. This is for 6th, I should say. We'll get back on board. The race leader, though, Elite Cassie, looks to take this one all the way to the checkered flag, but he's got a long road ahead of him to travel. He's now 4 seconds up the road from ETE Gilles, who will be beside himself after that incident down at Kallenhardt. But Elite Cassie has fought tooth and nail as he makes his way to Flansgarten. Next to Sprunghugel, one final leap for the Mercedes. Out of Sprunghugel he goes. He has kept this one absolutely pinned as he makes his way to Flansgarten 2. I must say, this has been one of the greatest final lap battles we've ever seen there. There was plenty of pressure in it. Yellow flags are out for the number 71 that's in trouble on the exiter, but I think that is at the same corner as where we saw the incident from before. That's down at Kallenhardt for the number 71 car on the final lap. The number 61 now has brought out the yellow flags. That's the Blue Frog, who looks to lose out position to the Boyche and Soviet Mario, who will go up to 3rd and 4th on the final lap. So the Boyche will see a last lap bid of a podium. What a fantastic drive he's had. We're still on board though at the moment with Elite Cassie on the final lap of this race, and he's now pulled double figures, 18.5 seconds up the road. ETEG has fought hard, but Elite Cassie has fought harder down the Dottinger. What?
Green light. Go, go, go.
What? What happened? Night became day there, and... This is the first time we've genuinely been stumped here on TRTN. Elite Cassie, decisively the race winner by the looks of it there, was only 2 or 3 corners away from the checkered flag. And now it's daytime. Can anyone explain that? That is a bizarre thing to have happened. I suppose, and this is a very rare incident, that we are forced to bring out the red flags. What a bizarre ending we've seen to that race. It is, I would say, decisively in the court of Elite Cassie NL to have won that race. It was 3 corners away from the checkered flag. He was 18 seconds up the road. What happened? We're going to get a word there from race control. Do hold tight. We're going to quickly go into technical difficulties and we'll bring you a result in a moment's time. Alright, well, we're back. I still don't have an exact idea what happened. This is genuinely quite a confusing time. Never before have we seen a... Well, that's a lie. We have seen a race end that way, but it was on a disconnect, whereas this one just ended down the Dottinger. Supposedly, the race end timer started ticking when we were down in the arena and that first set of results came out. And I know all of you saw that in that second to final lap. That was very bizarre, and it's definitely a bit of a kick in the sails for us because, well, that's all of the momentum gone. Apologies there to the viewers. There's nothing really we could have done in that situation. Just waiting to see really what's going on from race control. Genuinely, I think this is the first we've ever seen of something like that, ever. The last time we've ever had to pull the red flags out was the first round of the console endurance series with our contract with NLRL. That was because of a server disconnect across the board. G-Portal completely shut down. I am so confused. As far as we're led to believe at the moment, Elite Cassie NL has won round 15 of the championship, and that was a decisive victory by Mercedes and by Elite Cassie. That was a valiant drive. But it just kind of, I can't lie, it kind of sucks that, it kind of sucks that we couldn't see him get to the checkered flag, but we know he would have. It was 3 corners, unless he, probably wouldn't have, but unless he did crash at Tiergarten. I'd say it very much so is in the court that, yes, he has won round 15. We can also see, yeah, Elite Cassie in chat, well done today, but, yeah, he said thanks to the not extended end race timer. Yeah, so that was, I think, the theory that was running. The results came out, and I don't know why, though, because you were in the middle of the final lap. It had already said leader is on the final lap. It got down to the end of the arena section when the results came out. I think, actually, no, you were down at the Schumacher S, it's down towards Bittenwarsteiner, and then down towards Hatzenbeck's, the end of the GP circuit, when that came out. That is, I'm going to admit, very strange. Very strange. As far as we know, and you've seen it on stream there, we had the results come up, the race ended. It's out of our hands now. We'll see what the word is, and we'll provide you with an update of the upcoming broadcast we've got going on with NLRL this Saturday. We're heading to Kyalami, but genuinely, that is a bizarre end to this race then. So checkered flag is provisionally shown. Technically a red flag, but, you know, you can really pick and choose with these things. But yeah, regardless, that's the end of the road. I don't think we're going to be running another hour and 45-minute race to compensate for that. I wouldn't mind. You know, it's totally up for the drivers. But yeah, that's the end of the road for us then. Sorry about the sudden drop in character. Genuinely is the first time I think I've ever been properly stumped. Yeah, I suppose that's really the end. I hope you really enjoyed this broadcast. It was a fantastic race. Well done to Elite Cassie. First race win of his career in VSR. And honestly, that was quite a drive. I had it in the back of my mind since round 8 when he joined at Bathurst that this guy was going to go on to win a race someday. I'm just happy to see as close as we can to the checkered flag for it. Really, it should have been 3 more corners into the line. But I'm sure he's a little let down by that as well, but we'll be happy nonetheless with a result such as this. A race win at the Nürburgring in a German car. You couldn't ask for a better result. That's all from us though today here on TRTN. We hope you enjoyed watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday at Suzuka. For those of you tuning in for our other broadcasts, we've got double trouble this weekend with NLRL's Console Endurance Series penultimate round at Kyalami, and the next coming round of the Sunday League Season 2 at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Until then, take care and good night.